Hello guys. Welcome to Pika Fiction. So in this video, we will see what if Ash's reward for defeating Team Flare was a harem led by Serena, Shauna, and Malva. If you enjoy these kinds of stories, don't forget to show us some love by hitting the like button and subscribing to the channel. Your support means the world to us. Now, let's start the story. Chapter 1. The Guardians' burden. The scent of ozone and wet concrete still clung to the streets of Lumios City, a stubborn ghost haunting the reconstruction. It had been 3 weeks since the vines fell, since the sky turned the color of bruised iron, and since Lysandre tried to rewrite the world in a script of fire and silence. Ash Ketchum stood on the terrace of the Hotel Richissime, his hands resting on the cold wrought iron railing. From this height, the scars on the city were visible, cratered avenues being repaved, the skeletal remains of buildings wrapped in scaffolding, and the prism tower, still flickering occasionally as its grid stabilized. He wasn't wearing his signature cap. It sat on the table behind him, next to a lukewarm cup of coffee he hadn't touched. The wind at this altitude was biting, whipping his raven hair across his forehead, but he didn't shiver. He felt feverishly warm, a residual hum of energy that hadn't left his skin since the bond phenomenon had pushed him past the limits of human endurance. Pika, a soft voice murmured. Ash didn't turn. He reached up, his fingers brushing the familiar weight of the yellow mouse perched on his shoulder. I know, buddy. It's too quiet. It wasn't the peace of safety, it was the silence of a held breath. The people down below moved with a hurried, frantic energy, eyes darting to the shadows. They had seen their gods war in the streets. They had seen the champion, Diantha, brought to her knees before Ash and his Greninja had cleared the path. The illusion of invincibility that the Pokémon League provided had been shattered. The glass door behind him slid open. The footsteps were light, rhythmic, and hesitant. Ash. He turned. Serena stood in the doorway, framed by the soft amber light of the hotel suite. She was dressed simply in a slate gray blouse and a darker skirt, a stark contrast to the bright reds and pinks she used to favor. Her blue eyes were shadowed with fatigue, but her gaze was steady. She had grown up in the last 20 days. They all had. Diantha is here, Serena said softly, and the council. Ash sighed, the sound heavy in the evening air. He picked up his cap but didn't put it on, twisting the fabric in his hands. They're early. They're scared, Serena corrected, stepping out onto the balcony. She stopped beside him, her shoulder brushing his arm. The contact was grounding. The rumors are getting worse. People are saying Team Flare has cells left in the mountains. They're saying the League can't protect them anymore. The League can handle it, Ash said, though the words tasted like ash in his mouth. Can they? Serena looked up at him, searching his face. You're the one who stopped the rock, Ash. You're the one they saw on the screens. You can't just go back to Pallet Town. Not yet. Ash looked at her. The connection between them had shifted during the crisis. It wasn't just the crush she had harbored, or his oblivion to it. They had bled together. When he had been captured, hung like a trophy in Lysandre's labs, it was Serena's voice he had focused on to keep from breaking. I'm not leaving, Ash said, his voice dropping an octave, vibrating with a certainty that made Serena's breath hitch. But I'm not going to be their puppet, either. He walked past her, pausing only to squeeze her hand. Let's see what they want. The conference room on the top floor was soundproofed, the windows tinted to block the prying eyes of the media drones circling the tower. The air inside was recycled and stale. Diantha sat at the head of the long mahogany table. The champion of Kalos looked diminished. Her pristine white suit was wrinkled, her posture slumped. Flanking her were 3 members of the High Council, older men and women in heavy robes who controlled the funding and legislation of the region. They looked like vultures waiting for a carcass. Professor Sycamore was there too, standing by the window, looking grim. When Ash entered, the room shifted. It was a subtle physical reaction. The council members sat straighter, Diantha's eyes sharpened, and the guards by the door tightened their grips on their pokeballs. Ash walked with a predator's grace now, a fluidity learned from a ninja frog who moved faster than eyesight. Pikachu remained on his shoulder, sparks dancing idly from its red cheeks. Serena took a seat by the door, silent and observant. Ash, Diantha said, her voice smooth but lacking its usual musical lilt. Thank you for coming. Ash didn't sit. He stood at the opposite end of the table, placing his hands on the wood. You said it was urgent. It is, Counselor Valerius, a man with a beard like steel wool, grunted. The region is fracturing, boy. The police force is decimated. The gym leaders are pinned down in their own cities trying to maintain order. We have reports of looting, of Pokemon hoarding, of Flare sympathizers regrouping. So send the Elite Four, Ash said bluntly. Siebold is injured, Diantha replied. Wickstrom is holding the perimeter at the ironworks. Drasna is negotiating with the Draconids. And Malva. Diantha trailed off, a shadow passing over her face. Malva is in a holding cell, awaiting trial for high treason. Ash's eyes narrowed. So you're shorthanded. You want me to do a patrol? Clear out a few bandit camps? No. Valerius slammed his hand on the table. We don't need a patrolman. We need a symbol. Diantha stood up, sliding a thick dossier across the polished wood. It stopped inches from Ash's hand. The cover bore a crest he didn't recognize. A stylized shield superimposed over the Kalos emblem. The title of champion is bound by regulations, Diantha explained, her eyes pleading. It is a role of sport, of ceremony. It has limits. But Kalos has ancient laws, laws written during the Great War 3,000 years ago. There is a position that hasn't been filled in centuries. Ash looked down at the file. The Guardian of Kalos. It grants total jurisdictional immunity. Sycamore spoke up from the window, his voice grave. The Guardian answers only to the survival of the region. You would have the authority to commandeer resources, override local governance, and engage threats with extreme prejudice. You would be the sword in the darkness. You want me to be your weapon, Ash said quietly. We want you to be the deterrent, Diantha corrected. The people are terrified. They saw Lysandre almost kill us all. They need to know that the trainer who defeated him is watching over them. If you take this title, the panic subsides. The looting stops. You become the order. Ash picked up the file. It felt heavy. He flipped it open. It wasn't just a title, it was a life sentence. Residency in the capital. Mandatory command of a special operations unit. No more traveling for badges. No more aimless wandering. I'm 15, Ash said. You're the strongest trainer on the continent, Valerius countered coldly. Age is irrelevant when you possess power that rivals legendaries. Do you deny that your Greninja changes form? That you share its pain, its sight? That isn't training, Ketchum. That is avatarism. Ash didn't respond. He looked at Pikachu. The electric mouse looked back, ears twitching. They both knew the truth. They had touched the void. They couldn't go back to catching caterpies in the woods. If I do this, Ash said, looking up, his eyes hardening into brown flint. I do it my way. No council oversight on my field decisions. No politics. Within reason, Valerius began. No, Ash cut him off, the air in the room suddenly dropping 10 degrees. The pressure of his aura leaked out, invisible but suffocating. The guards by the door flinched. Total autonomy. Or I walk, and you can handle the riots yourselves. Diantha exhaled, a mix of relief and resignation, agreed, total autonomy. There is one condition from our side, Valerius said, regaining his composure. The Guardian cannot operate alone. It is too much power for one individual. You require a retinue. A staff. To manage logistics, public relations, and intelligence. I have friends, Ash said. You need more than friends. You need specialists, Valerius insisted. We have selected candidates. I select my own team, Ash interrupted. He turned to Serena. She stood up immediately, walking to his side. She didn't say a word, but her stance, chin up, hands clasped, spoke volumes. Serena stays, Ash said. She knows the region better than I do. She handles the public face. She keeps me from doing anything stupid. Diantha nodded. Acceptable. She is a performer favorite. The public loves her. It softens your edges. And I need a handler, Ash continued. Someone who knows how the underworld works. Someone who knows Team Flare from the inside. The room went deadly silent. Sycamore pushed off the wall. Ash, you can't mean. Malva, Ash said. She is a traitor. Valerius sputtered. She is facing life in prison. She was an executive, Ash corrected. She knows where the bodies are buried. She knows the codes, the safe houses, the funding routes. If Team Flare is regrouping, she's the only one who can predict their moves. She will kill you in your sleep, Diantha warned. Ash smiled, a dry, humorless expression that didn't reach his eyes. Let her try. I want her released into my custody. If she runs, I catch her. If she betrays us, I deal with her. But I need her fire. He looked around the room, challenging anyone to object. And one more, Ash added. I need someone on the ground. Someone the people trust who isn't a soldier or a politician. The doors to the conference room burst open. The guards stumbled back as a small, energetic figure stormed in. She was wearing denim shorts and a pink hoodie, her hair in its signature pigtails, but her face was streaked with dirt and she looked like she hadn't slept in days. I'm coming too, Shauna announced, breathless. Ash blinked, the mask of the weary soldier slipping for a second. Shauna? She marched up to the table, slamming her hands down next to the dossier. She looked at the council, then at Ash. I heard you were here. I heard what you're doing. Tierno and Trevor. They're helping rebuild the aqueduct in Santaloon. But I can't just stack bricks, Ash. I saw what happened in the forest. I saw what you did. She turned to him, her eyes tearing up. You're going to take on the whole world, aren't you? You're going to try to carry it all by yourself. It's dangerous, Shauna, Ash said gently. I don't care, she wiped her eyes. I'm not a battle genius like you, and I'm not famous like Serena. But I can make things grow. I can fix things. And you need someone to remind you to eat lunch. The absurdity of the statement broke the tension. Ash chuckled, a genuine sound this time. He looked at Diantha. My court, Ash said. Serena for the heart. Shauna for the spirit. Malva for the shadow. Diantha looked at the three young women and the boy who had outgrown his childhood in a week. She saw the danger of it, a rogue unit with the power of a nation-state. But she also saw the hope. Very well, Diantha said. Guardian Ketchum. The sub-basement of the Lumios police station was cold, damp, and smelled of despair. Ash walked down the corridor alone. He had sent Serena and Shauna to the estate, the fortified mansion on the outskirts of the city that was to be their new headquarters, to begin the move-in process. This was something he had to do solo. He stopped in front of cell 402. Inside, sitting on a sterile metal cot, was Malva. The Fire Elite 4 member looked stripped down. Her flamboyant glasses were gone. Her hair was unstyled and hanging limp around her sharp face, and she wore a gray prison jumpsuit. She didn't look up as the electronic lock beeped and the heavy door slid open. Come to gloat? Her voice was raspy, scratching against the silence. Ash stepped inside. The door closed behind him. He leaned against the wall, crossing his arms. I don't gloat, Malva. You know that. She looked up then. Her eyes were dark, rimmed with red, but the fire inside them wasn't out. It was just banked, waiting for oxygen. Then what? Executioner. Did Diantha send you to finish the job Lysandre couldn't? I'm the new guardian of Kalos, Ash said. Malva laughed. It was a harsh, barking sound. Guardian. What a pretty word for dictator. So, the boy king takes his throne. Congratulations. I need a second in command, Ash said. Malva froze. She stared at him, searching for the mockery, but found only a terrifying pragmatism. Excuse me? I negotiated your release, Ash explained calmly. Into my custody. You work for me. You help me hunt down the remnants of Flare. You use your network to keep the peace. And why would I do that? Malva sneered, standing up. She walked toward him, stopping inches away. She was taller than him, but he didn't give an inch. Why shouldn't I just take the first chance to burn you to cinders and run? Because you have nowhere to go, Ash said. The League wants you dead. The Flare remnants think you're a traitor for helping us at the end. The public hates you. I am the only person in Kalos who is offering you a life. A life as a slave. A life as a partner, Ash corrected. I don't want a servant, Malva. I have plenty of people who will say, yes, to me. I need someone who will tell me, no, I need someone who knows how the world actually works, not how I want it to work. He locked eyes with her. You joined Lysandre because you were angry. You thought the world was ugly and broken. Well, it is broken. Help me fix it. Not by destroying it, but by cleaning out the rot. Malva stared at him. She saw the raw power radiating off him, the aura of a trainer who had commanded Zygarde. But she also saw something else, a challenge. He was offering her a purpose. And, perhaps more dangerously, He was looking at her not with disgust, but with expectation. If I step out of this cell, Malva whispered, her voice low and sultry, a ghost of her news anchor persona returning, I am yours. Body and soul, technically speaking. You hold my leash. I don't believe in leashes, Ash said. I believe in choices. Shoes. Malva held his gaze for a long, agonizing minute. Then, a slow, sharp smile spread across her lips. It wasn't a nice smile. It was the smile of a houndoom scenting blood. Very well, Guardian, she purred. Get me out of these rags. We have work to do. The Guardian's estate sat on a cliff overlooking the Azure Bay, a few miles north of Lumios. It was a pre-war fortress that had been retrofitted with modern luxury. High stone walls, expansive grounds, and a landing pad for flying types. It was sunset when Ash and Malva arrived via a League helicopter. The rotors kicked up dust as they landed. Serena and Shauna were waiting on the patio. The contrast was jarring. Serena, poised and organizing moving boxes with her brakes in. Shauna, directing a team of machoke with chaotic energy. When Malva stepped out of the chopper, now dressed in a sharp black tactical suit Ash had requisitioned for her, the atmosphere shifted. Serena stiffened. Shauna stopped waving. Malva adjusted her gloves, looking at the two younger women with disdain. So, the cheerleader and the mascot. This is the Grand Army? Watch it, Malva, Serena said, her voice icy. She stepped forward, her hand resting on the pokeball at her belt. You're here on probation. I'm here because he needs someone who can actually fight, Malva shot back. Enough. Ash's voice cut through the noise. It wasn't a shout, but it carried the weight of a command. He walked between them, looking at the three women. The sun was setting behind him, casting long shadows across the estate. We don't have to like each other, Ash said, but we have to trust each other. Starting tonight, we are the only thing standing between Kalos and chaos. He looked at Shauna. Shauna, I need the perimeter sensors online. Work with Clement remotely if you have to. On it, Shauna saluted, happy to have a task, and ran toward the control room. Malva, Ash turned to her. I want a list of every known flare safehouse within 100 miles by morning. I'll need coffee, Malva said dryly, but she turned and headed for the library. Ash was left alone with Serena. The wind blew off the ocean, carrying the salt spray. You trust her? Serena asked quietly, watching Malva's retreating back. No, Ash admitted. Not yet. But she's right about one thing. We need fire to fight fire. Serena stepped closer, reaching out to fix the collar of his jacket. Her fingers lingered on his neck. And what about us, Ash? What do you need from me? Ash looked down at her. The adrenaline of the day was fading, leaving behind a bone-deep exhaustion. He leaned into her touch, just for a second, letting his forehead rest against hers. It was a moment of vulnerability he would never show the Council or Malva. I need you to remind me, he whispered. Remind you of what? That I'm still human, Ash said. That I'm not just the Guardian. Serena wrapped her arms around him, holding him tight against the encroaching dark. I can do that. As the night fully descended over the estate, the lights of Lumios City flickered in the distance. From the shadows of the nearby forest, a pair of glowing red eyes watched the house, unblinking and cold. A low, metallic growl rumbled in the underbrush, then faded into silence. The war was over, but the hunt had just begun. Chapter 1 end. Chapter 2. Embers and Shadows. The kitchen of the Guardian's estate was designed for a staff of 10. It currently held 4 people who barely knew how to talk to one another without weaponizing the silence. Morning sunlight streamed through the floor-to-ceiling windows, illuminating the dust motes dancing in the air and the distinct lack of domestic harmony. Serena stood by the massive industrial stove, whisking eggs with a rhythmic, aggressive intensity. She was trying to impose order on the morning, determined to make this strange new arrangement feel like a home. Shauna sat at the island counter, swinging her legs. She was scrolling through a holographic tablet, her brow furrowed. The perimeter sensors are weird, Ash. I'm getting ghost readings near the cliffs. Probably just wild wingull, but the heat signatures are cold. Ash sat at the head of the island, nursing a mug of black coffee. He wore a simple black t-shirt and training pants, the informality clashing with the grandeur of the marble room. He looked awake, though nobody had seen him sleep. Keep monitoring it, Ash said, his voice gravelly. If it persists, we'll do a sweep. How tactical, a voice drawled from the doorway. Malva leaned against the frame, arms crossed. She looked immaculate, having somehow sourced a silk robe that cost more than Ash's first car. Her crimson hair was perfectly coiffed, her eyes sharp behind her glasses, which she had miraculously reacquired. I see the domestic bliss initiative is in full swing, Malva said, eyeing Serena's cooking with disdain. Tell me, Guardian, is this the strategy? We defeat the remnants of Team Flare by clogging their arteries with cholesterol? Serena slammed the whisk down. If you want breakfast, Malva, you can make it yourself. I don't cook, darling. I consume. Malva pushed off the doorframe and glided into the room, the scent of expensive perfume cutting through the smell of bacon. She stopped behind Ash, leaning down so her lips were inches from his ear. I finished that list you asked for. 6 safe houses. 3 in the mountains, 2 in the sewers, 1 under a bakery in Silage City. Good, Ash said, not reacting to her proximity. Upload the coordinates to the war room. I could, Malva purred, trailing a manicured finger along the back of his chair. Or, we could discuss my terms. I'm not a secretary, Ash. I'm an Elite Four member. I don't do data entry. Ash set his mug down. The ceramic clinked loudly against the marble. He turned his head slightly, meeting her gaze. You are an Elite Four member. Now, you're an acid on probation. You do what is required. The temperature in the room seemed to spike. Shauna stopped swinging her legs. Serena froze, the spatula hovering over the pan. Malva's smile didn't waver, but her eyes went hard. You think because you saved the world once, you own me? You think you can tame a houndoom by feeding it scraps? I think you're testing me, Ash said calmly. Maybe I am. Malva straightened up, her voice losing its sultry edge and becoming razor sharp. I watched you during the crisis. You have power, yes. You have that freakish frog and a rat that hits like a thunderbolt. But power isn't leadership. You're a child who stumbled into a god's throne. And I don't follow children. She turned and walked toward the patio doors. Meet me in the training grounds. 10 minutes. One-on-one. If you beat me, I'll be your loyal little soldier. If I win, I take the codes to the security grid and I walk out of here, and you don't stop me. Ash, no, Serena interjected immediately, stepping away from the stove. She's trying to bait you. She's dangerous. She's right, Ash said, standing up. He picked up his cap from the counter and pulled it low over his eyes. She needs to know where she stands. She'll fight dirty, Shauna warned, looking pale. Ash stopped at the door, looking back at his team. I know. The estate's training ground was a sprawling expanse of reinforced earth and stone, designed to withstand hyper beams. The ocean roared against the cliffs below, the sound mixing with the cries of seabirds. Malva stood at the far end, the wind whipping her silk robe. She had shed it to reveal her tactical suit underneath. In her hand, she held a premier ball, tossing it casually into the air and catching it. Ash walked to the center of the field. He didn't bring a full belt. Just Pikachu on his shoulder and one Pokeball at his waist. Serena and Shauna watched from the observation deck, a safe distance away behind energy-shielded glass. This is a bad idea, Shauna muttered, gripping the railing. Malva doesn't play for points, she plays for keeps. He knows, Serena said, though her knuckles were white. He has to do this. If he doesn't dominate her now, she'll undermine him at every turn. Down on the field, Malva smiled. Last chance to back out, Guardian. You can go back to your pancakes. Ready when you are, Ash replied. Arrogance, Malva spat. She threw the ball. Houndoom, incinerate. The flash of white light materialized into the dark, sleek form of her signature Pokémon. The Houndoom roared, flames leaking from its maw, the bone-like armor on its back gleaming in the sun. It wore a mega stone around its neck. Mega Evolve. Malva screamed, wasting no time. She tapped the keystone embedded in her glove. Streams of energy connected trainer and Pokémon. Houndoom's form twisted and grew, its horns elongating, its chest armor expanding. The heat radiating from it was palpable even from the observation deck. Mega Houndoom stood tall, a demon of fire and bone. Flamethrower. The blast was instantaneous and massive, a torrent of white-hot fire that consumed the space where Ash stood. The ground turned to glass instantly. Ash, Serena gasped. The fire cleared. Ash wasn't there. Too slow, Ash's voice came from the right. He was standing 10 feet away, unburnt. Pikachu was still on his shoulder, looking bored. Greninja stood before him, its tongue scarf wrapped loosely around its neck, water dripping from its webbed fingers. It hadn't even transformed yet. It had simply moved Ash out of the way with blinding speed. Malva's eye twitched. Cute trick. Dark Pulse. Mega Houndoom unleashed a wave of dark energy, a rippling distortion of space that tore up the earth. Cut. Ash commanded softly. Greninja vanished. A blur of blue light bisected the dark pulse, dissipating the energy before it reached them. Greninja reappeared in midair, diving toward Houndoom with a glowing white kunai in hand. Crunch. Malva countered. Houndoom snapped its jaws, catching the energy blade and shattering it. It whipped its head around, breathing point-blank fire at the frog. Water Shuriken. Greninja didn't dodge. It slammed a shuriken of compressed water directly into the fire stream. Steam exploded outward, covering the field in a thick, blinding white fog. He's using the steam, Shauna whispered. He's blinding her. Where are you? Malva yelled, scanning the mist. Smog. Fill the field. Houndoom exhaled a cloud of toxic purple gas, mixing with the steam. It was a choke-out tactic. If they couldn't see, the poison would get them. Ash stood perfectly still in the center of the toxic cloud. He closed his eyes. He didn't need to see. He could feel Greninja's heartbeat. He could feel the pulse of the water in the air. Right there. Aerial ace, Ash whispered. 3 points. The mist swirled violently. Thwack. 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 3 impacts in rapid succession. Houndoom howled in pain as it was knocked backward, sliding out of the gas cloud. Greninja landed gracefully on a rock, untouched. Malva gritted her teeth. She was losing the trade. Burn it all down, Inferno. Houndoom reared back, gathering a sphere of fire that looked like a miniature sun. This wasn't a precise attack, it was an area of effect nuke. Now, Ash said. His eyes snapped open. He didn't yell. He didn't do a pose. He just synced. A torrent of water erupted from the ground around Greninja, spiraling upward. The water hardened, taking the shape of a massive shuriken on its back. The bond phenomenon flared. Ash's hair spiked slightly, and his eyes glowed with a faint blue luminescence. Ash Greninja moved. It didn't just dodge the inferno, it cut through it. The water veil around Greninja acted as a shield, evaporating the fire upon contact. Greninja closed the distance in a heartbeat. Solar beam. Malva shrieked, desperate. Water shuriken, maximum. Greninja pulled the massive star from its back. It was humming with power, rotating with the force of a buzzsaw. He slammed it down just as Houndoom fired. The collision shook the estate. A shockwave of steam and energy blew the windows of the observation deck, forcing Serena and Shauna to cover their heads. When the dust settled, the field was silent. A crater smoked in the center of the training ground. Mega Houndoom had reverted to its normal form, lying unconscious in the dirt. Greninja stood over it, the water veil dissipating. It looked back at Ash, nodded once, and vanished into its Pokeball. Ash stood alone, facing Malva. He walked across the scorched earth until he was standing right in front of her. She was breathing hard, her hands trembling. Her pride lay in ruins around her. You held back, Malva whispered, staring at the unconscious Houndoom. That final attack. You diverted the impact at the last second. You could have killed him. We're on the same side, Malva, Ash said. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a potion, tossing it to her. She caught it reflexively. Why? She asked, looking at the bottle. You beat me. You could have humiliated me. I don't need your humiliation, Ash said, his voice flat but not unkind. I need your expertise. You're the blade. Remember? A blade is useless if it's broken. He turned his back on her, exposing his neck, a sign of ultimate trust, or ultimate arrogance. Heal your Pokemon. Then get change. We have a briefing in an hour. Malva watched him walk away. Her hands tightened around the potion bottle until the plastic creaked. She looked at his back, then at her fallen Houndoom. For the first time in years, the cynicism that fueled her felt insufficient. He wasn't a child. He was a force of nature disguised as a boy. And for the first time, the idea of serving him didn't taste like bile. It tasted like excitement. The briefing room. Ash insisted on calling it the living room, despite the holographic map table in the center, was tense, but the air was clearer. Malva sat in a corner, her houndoom resting at her feet. She was quiet, her notebook open. The animosity was gone, replaced by a wary, professional focus. Okay, Ash said, leaning over the map. Malva's intel checked out. The safe houses in the mountains are active, but Shauna found something else. Shauna jumped up, pulling up a grainy video feed on the main screen. This came in 20 minutes ago. It's from a ranger station in the wetlands, near the route to Laver City. The video was shaky. It showed a dense swamp, shrouded in fog. The camera panned to a clearing. In the center of the clearing stood a quagsire, but it was wrong. Its skin was gray and cracked, like dry mud. Its eyes were devoid of pupils, glowing a dull, sick white. It was swaying back and forth, making a sound that wasn't a cry. It was a low, static hum. A ranger approached it in the video. Hey, little guy? You okay? The quagsire snapped. It moved with jerky, unnatural speed, lunging at the ranger. The camera fell, showing a chaotic blur of motion and the sound of tearing fabric before the feed cut to static. The room was silent. What was that? Serena whispered, her hand covering her mouth. That didn't look like a shadow Pokemon. Cypher's method makes them angry. That thing looked empty. We're calling them hollows, Ash said grimly. Reports are popping up all over the rural edges of Kalos. Pokemon losing their color, their personality, and attacking anything with a pulse. It's not a disease, Malva said, stepping forward, her analytical mind taking over. Look at the energy readings on the timestamp. The ambient infinity energy in that sector dropped to near zero. Something is draining them, Ash concluded. Sucking the life right out of them and leaving a shell behind. He looked at his team. The training wheels were off. This wasn't a political game anymore. Shauna, I want you to analyze that feed. Find out if there's a pattern to where they appear. Serena, get on the line with the Laver gym leader. See if Valerie has seen anything. And me? Malva asked. Ash looked at her. You and I are going to the wetlands. We're going to capture one. Alive. Malva raised an eyebrow. If possible, Ash said. He checked his gear, tightening his gloves. If not, we put it out of its misery. The flight to the wetlands was silent. Ash piloted the Noivern-class transport shuttle the League had provided. Malva sat in the co-pilot seat, watching the landscape rush by below. You're good at this, Malva said suddenly. Ash didn't look away from the controls. At what? Command. You fall into it naturally. Most people freeze when the map lights up red. You get calmer. I've had a lot of practice, Ash said, usually without a map. Tell me something. Malva turned in her seat to face him. Back there, in the arena. You synced with Greninja. I felt the energy shift. It wasn't just mega evolution. There was no stone. It's a bond, Ash said simply. We trust each other completely. Trust, Malva scoffed softly. A dangerous currency. It usually leads to bankruptcy. Lysandre trusted no one, Ash countered. Look where he ended up. Malva looked out the window. Touché. They landed in a clearing near the ranger station. The air here was thick, smelling of rotting vegetation and stagnant water. The silence of the swamp was oppressive. There were no bird calls, no insect buzzing. Just the wet squelch of their boots as they stepped off the ramp. Pikachu, stay sharp, Ash murmured. Pikachu's ears swiveled, his tail twitching. Houndoom, on point, Malva commanded. Her Houndoom, recovered but still bruised, sniffed the air and growled low in its throat. They moved toward the coordinates of the attack. The ranger station was a wreck. Windows smashed, door hanging off its hinges. Blood, Malva noted, pointing to a smear on the doorframe. But not much. The ranger might have got away. Was taken, Ash said. They moved deeper into the swamp. The fog grew thicker, swirling around their knees. Snap. A twig broke to their left. Ash signaled for a halt. He didn't reach for a pokeball. He just widened his stance. From the mist, figures emerged. 3 of them. A Politoed, a Goodra, and a Yanmega. All of them shared the same affliction. Gray, cracked skin, white eyes, and that terrifying, empty silence. 3 of them, Malva whispered, high-level species. They're surrounding us, Ash noted. Coordination. That means a hive mind, or a controller. The Gudra opened its mouth. No dragon pulse formed. Instead, a beam of gray, distorted light shot out. Dodge! Ash yelled. He and Malva dove in opposite directions. The beam hit a tree behind them. The tree didn't explode. It turned gray and crumbled into dust instantly. It disintegrates organic matter, Malva shouted, scrambling up. Ash, we can't let those hit us. Houndoom, Flamethrower, Pikachu, Thunderbolt. The attacks launched. Fire and lightning struck the hollowed Pokémon. They didn't flinch. They didn't cry out in pain. The attacks hit, burned and shocked them, but they kept moving forward, relentless as zombies. They don't feel pain, Ash realized. They're just biological machines. The Yanmega buzzed, accelerating with terrifying speed toward Malva. She stumbled in the mud. Malva. Ash didn't think. He lunged, tackling Malva into the muck just as the Yanmega's razor-sharp wings sliced the air where her head had been. They rolled together, covered in swamp water. Ash ended up on top of her, shielding her body with his own. He looked up. The Yanmega was banking for another pass. Greninja, I choose you. Ash threw the ball from his prone position. Greninja materialized in the air, intercepting the Yanmega with a night slash that slammed it into the mud. Ash scrambled up, pulling Malva with him. She looked at him, eyes wide. He was covered in mud, his face streaked with grime, but his focus was entirely on the threat. He had thrown himself in front of a scythe for her. We have to incapacitate them, Ash yelled. Don't try to hurt them. Bind them, Pikachu, Electroweb. Pikachu leapt, spinning an electric net that pinned the Politoed and Gudra against a large rock. They struggled, their bodies twitching, but the web held. Greninja had the Yanmega pinned, holding it down by its wings. The creature thrashed, snapping its mandibles, but Greninja's strength was superior. Malva, contain them, Ash ordered. Malva shook off her shock. She pulled out 3 heavy-duty containment balls, League issue, designed for Ultra Beasts. She threw them. Click. 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 The balls shook violently, then settled. Silence returned to the swamp. Ash exhaled, wiping mud from his eyes. He walked over to the balls, picking them up cautiously. We got them. He turned to Malva. She was standing there, ignoring the mud ruining her suit. She was staring at him with an expression he couldn't parse. It wasn't mockery, it wasn't anger. You saved me, she said flatly. You're my team, Ash said, as if it were the most obvious thing in the world. We cover each other. You're an idiot, Malva said, but there was no heat in it. She walked over, brushing a leaf off his shoulder. Her hand lingered for a fraction of a second too long. A brave, foolish idiot. Let's get back, Ash said, looking at the containment balls. Sycamore needs to see these. And I have a feeling this is just the beginning. As they walked back to the ship, Malva walked slightly closer to him than before. The gap between the Guardian and the traitor had shrunk. The fire had been met with water, and instead of extinguishing, it had created steam, energy. But deep in the swamp, unseen by either of them, a small, mechanical drone hovered silently behind a tree. It recorded their departure, then turned its camera toward the pile of gray dust that used to be a tree. A voice spoke from the drone, cool and female. Subject Alpha demonstrates protective instincts. Emotional bonding confirmed. Proceed to Phase 2. Chapter 2 End. Chapter 3. The Masquerade. The mirror in the master suite of the Guardian's estate reflected a stranger. Ash Ketchum stood frozen, arms slightly away from his sides, staring at the young man in the glass. The reflection wore a midnight blue tuxedo, tailored to within an inch of its life. The fabric possessed a subtle sheen, catching the light like the surface of a deep ocean. A high collar, a silver vest, and, worst of all, a tie that felt like a localized stranglehold. Stop fidgeting, Serena commanded softly. She stood in front of him, her hands deft and busy adjusting the lapels of his jacket. She was a vision in crimson. A floor-length gown that shimmered like liquid ruby, with a back that plunged daringly low. Her honey-blonde hair was pinned up in an intricate weave, exposing the curve of her neck. I can't breathe, Ash complained, though he didn't pull away. How do people fight in these things? They don't fight, Ash. They negotiate, Serena said, Her eyes focused on smoothing a non-existent wrinkle on his shoulder. She looked up, her gaze locking with his in the mirror. Her expression softened. "You look different." "I look like a politician," Ash grumbled. "You look like a leader," Serena corrected. She rested her hands on his chest, feeling the steady, powerful thrum of his heart. "Tonight isn't about strength, Ash. It's about presence. The aristocracy needs to see the guardian, not just the trainer." Ash sighed, the tension in his shoulders dropping an inch. He covered her hands with his own. "I'd rather face a Gyarados in a rowboat." "I know," she smiled, a genuine, warm expression that cut through the formality of the moment. "But you won't be alone. You have us." Sentimental drivel, a voice drawled from the doorway. Malva leaned against the frame, looking dangerous. She wore black, naturally, a sleek, strapless number that looked like it was made of shadows and malice. A diamond choker sat tight against her throat, and her gloves reached her elbows. She looked like a widow who had just poisoned her husband and was already spending the inheritance. "The limo is waiting," Malva said, checking a compact mirror. "And Shauna is currently trying to convince her Bulbasaur that it cannot wear a bow tie to the event." Ash turned from the mirror, the movement sharp despite the restrictive clothing. "Malva, run the guest list by me one more time." Malva snapped the compact shut. Her demeanor shifted instantly from bored socialite to intelligence operative. "The host is Count Valerian, old money, heavy investor in tech. Neutral. The guests include the High Council, the remaining gym leaders, and the heads of the major corporations like Devon and Sylph Company, but the one you need to watch is Grand Duchess Solana." "Solana," Ash tested the name. "The scientist. The philanthropist," Malva corrected with a sneer. "She runs the Ascendancy Foundation. They fund research into human Pokemon harmony. On paper, she's a saint. In reality, she's the one who bought up half of Lysandre Labs' assets for pennies on the dollar after the crash. She's smart, she's rich, and she has no known Pokemon team. Which makes her the most dangerous person in the room." "Why?" Serena asked. "Because in a world of trainers, the one who doesn't play the game is usually the one rigging the board," Malva said. She pushed off the doorframe. "Let's go. It's time to dance with the sharks." The Royal Lumiose Hall was a cathedral of excess. Crystal chandeliers the size of small cars hung from the vaulted ceiling, casting a golden glow over a sea of masks and silk. A live orchestra played a waltz on a raised dais, the music floating over the murmur of 500 wealthy guests. When the doors opened and the herald announced, "The Guardian of Kalos, Ash Ketchum, and his retinue," the room didn't just go quiet, it froze. Ash stepped onto the grand staircase, Serena on his right arm, Shauna on his left, with Malva trailing a step behind like a bodyguard. He didn't wave. He didn't smile his goofy, boyish grin. He scanned the room. His eyes, sharpened by war, cataloged exits, security details, and threat vectors. The aura he projected was palpable, a heavy, electric pressure that made the aristocrats at the bottom of the stairs instinctively step back. "They're staring," Shauna whispered, her smile plastered on tight. She wore a playful pink cocktail dress, looking like a breath of fresh air in the stuffy room. "Let them stare," Ash murmured. "Malva, go dark." "Already gone," Malva replied. She didn't leave, she simply melted away. One moment she was behind them, the next she had vanished into a cluster of waiters, effectively invisible. They descended the stairs. The crowd parted like the Red Sea. Guardian Ketchum, a heavy-set man with a monocle, bowed low. "An honor, truly." Ash nodded, brief and efficient. "Count Valerian, thank you for the invitation. Please, enjoy the champagne. The night is yours." The enjoyment was a battlefield of etiquette. For the next hour, Ash was assaulted by handshakes and hollow compliments. Serena was his shield. She navigated the conversations with the grace of a Kalos queen, deflecting prying questions about Ash's powers and steering topics toward reconstruction efforts. Shauna worked the perimeter, charming the younger heirs and heiresses, listening for gossip. Ash felt suffocated. The perfume in the air was too sweet. The laughter was too shrill. He felt Pikachu tense up inside the special pocket sewn into his jacket. "Air," Ash whispered to Serena. "Balcony," she confirmed, steering him toward the French doors. They stepped out into the cool night air. The balcony overlooked the city lights. Ash gripped the stone railing, taking a deep breath. "You're doing well," Serena said, standing beside him. I hate them, Ash admitted. They talk about the crisis like it was a bad weather pattern. Oh, the property damage was dreadful. People died, Serena. They cope by ignoring the ugly parts, a cool, melodic voice spoke from the shadows of the balcony. Ash spun around, hand instinctively going to his belt before remembering he only had Pokeballs concealed in his jacket lining. A woman stepped into the light. She was tall, with hair the color of moonlight falling straight to her waist. She wore a gown of pale silver that looked like metal woven into silk. Her face was beautiful, but in the way a marble statue is beautiful, perfect, symmetrical, and cold. Grand Duchess Solana, Ash said. He didn't ask, he knew. Guardian. She inclined her head slightly. She didn't bow. It is fascinating to finally meet the anomaly. Anomaly? Ash narrowed his eyes. The boy who defies the data, Solana said, walking closer. She moved with a strange, gliding smoothness. Psychic types predicted Kalos would fall. You rewrote the equation. I am a scientist at heart, Mr. Ketchum. I dislike outliers. I'm not a math problem, Ash said, his voice hard. Aren't you? Solana stopped a few feet away. She looked at Pikachu, who had poked his head out of Ash's pocket. A Pikachu that generates voltage far exceeding its biological limits. A Greninja that mimics Mega Evolution without a stone. You are a walking collection of impossibilities. Some would call that a miracle. I call it unstable. Instability implies I can't control it, Ash countered. Control is an illusion, Solana smiled, but her eyes remained flat. Emotions are volatile variables. Fear, love, anger. They make trainers sloppy. Lysandre failed because he was emotional. He wanted to save the world because he pitied it. A true savior must be objective. A true savior cares about what they're saving, Serena interjected, stepping slightly in front of Ash. If you remove the emotion, you remove the point. Solana looked at Serena, analyzing her like a bug under a microscope. Miss Yvonne. The emotional anchor. Interesting. We shall see if love is enough to hold back the tide, my dear. Solana turned back to the doors. Enjoy the waltz, Guardian. I hear the music changing. She left them with a chill that lingered in the air longer than the wind. I don't like her, Serena shivered. She feels empty, Ash said, rubbing his chest, like the hollows. Suddenly, his earpiece crackled. It was Malva. Ash. Problem. I'm in the security room. The sensors just spiked. There's a massive energy signature inside the ballroom. Someone just activated a jamming signal. No Pokeballs can beam in or out. We're trapped. Ash touched his ear. We're in a cage, and something is in there with you. From inside the ballroom, a scream shattered the polite conversation. Ash didn't hesitate. He kicked the doors open and sprinted back inside. The scene was chaos. Guests were scrambling, knocking over tables. In the center of the dance floor, a Pokémon stood amidst the ruin of the ice sculpture. It was a Gallade. But like the ones in the swamp, its skin was cracked and gray, its eyes glowing a dead white. But this one was different. It was massive, pulsating with a dark, violet energy that arced off its elbow blades. It belonged to General Gaspard, the head of the PDF, who was currently lying unconscious near the stage. It went hollow. Shauna yelled from across the room, where she was herding guests behind a heavy oak table. The Gallade raised its arm. A blade of psycho-cut energy formed, but it was jagged and unstable. It slashed wildly, slicing a crystal chandelier in half. The massive fixture plummeted toward a group of dignitaries. Pikachu, Iron Tail. Ash launched himself off the balcony steps. Pikachu sprang from his shoulder, tail glowing metallic white. He smashed into the falling chandelier, knocking it sideways just enough to crash harmlessly into a buffet table. Ash landed in a crouch between the crowd and the monster. The Gallade turned its head slowly. It locked onto Ash. Kill. The Guardian. The Gallade spoke. Not with its own voice, but with a garbled, mechanical synthesis of telepathy. It can talk? Serena gasped, running up behind Ash. It's being piloted, Ash realized. He tapped his comms. Malva. Find the source of the signal. Working on it. Keep it busy. The Gallade vanished. Teleport. Ash's instincts screamed behind. He didn't turn. He ducked. The violet blade sheared the air where his neck had been. Ash swept his leg, aiming to trip the Pokémon, but the Gallade floated, hovering just off the ground. It brought its other arm down. Ash caught the wrist. Gasps rippled through the room. Ash Ketchum, a human boy, had caught the arm of a mega-level fighting type with his bare hand. The floor beneath Ash's dress shoes cracked. Serena, clear the floor, Ash gritted out, his muscles straining against the suit jacket. I can't use attacks with this many people around. Pikachu, wait for an opening, Serena commanded, taking charge of the tactics. Braixen isn't with me. Shauna, do you have Ivysaur? He's in the code check. Shauna yelled back. Damn it, Ash growled. The Gallade overpowered him, flinging him across the polished floor. Ash skidded, crashing into the orchestra pit. The Gallade raised both arms, gathering energy for a psycho cut that would decapitate half the room. Ash looked up. He couldn't use Thunderbolt. The conduction would fry the guests. He couldn't use Greninja. The jamming signal blocked the Pokeball. He had to do this the hard way. Ash stood up, shedding the ruined tuxedo jacket. He rolled up his sleeves. His aura flared, a visible blue outline shimmering around his body. Hey! Ash yelled. Over here! The Gallade fired. The energy wave tore through the floorboards. Ash ran. He didn't run away, he ran along the wall, defying gravity for 3 steps, and launched himself at the chandelier above the Gallade. He grabbed the chain, swung once for momentum, and dropped. Pikachu! Electro Ball! On me, Pika? Are you crazy? Do it! Pikachu fired the orb of electricity. It didn't hit the Gallade, it hit Ash. But Ash didn't burn. He acted as a lightning rod. He absorbed the electricity, channeling it through his aura. He slammed his glowing fist into the Gallade's chest. Thunder. Punch. The impact was thunderous. The Gallade was blasted backward, crashing through the heavy double doors and out into the main foyer. Ash landed, smoke rising from his vest. He panted heavily. Malva? Got it. Malva's voice was triumphant. The signal is coming from a brooch on the general's wife. She's in the corner, looking dazed. Serena. Ash pointed. Serena saw the woman. A terrified noble clutching a ruby brooch. Serena didn't ask questions. She sprinted, sliding across the floor in her gown like an action hero, and tackled the woman gently but firmly. She ripped the brooch off and smashed it against the marble floor. The device shattered. In the foyer, the Gallade suddenly froze. The violet light in its eyes flickered and died. It collapsed, reverting to a normal, unconscious Pokémon. Silence descended on the ballroom. Ash stood in the center of the wreckage, his shirt torn, his tie gone, electricity still crackling faintly around his fingers. He looked terrifying. He looked magnificent. Slowly, from the mezzanine level, slow clapping began. Ash looked up. Grand Duchess Solana was looking down at him, her expression unreadable. She clapped slowly, rhythmically. Bravo, Guardian, she called out, her voice carrying through the silent hall. A marvelous performance. Though I do wonder. How long can you keep the ceiling from falling? Ash glared at her. He knew. He couldn't prove it, but he knew. Malva materialized next to him, slipping a fresh earpiece into his hand. We need to go. Now. The police are coming, and you do not want to answer questions about why you just punched a general's Pokémon through a wall. Shauna? Ash asked. Cars out back. Engine running, Shauna called out, helping the general's wife up. Ash looked at Serena. She was breathless, her hair messy, holding the pieces of the smashed brooch. She nodded. Let's go home, Ash said. The ride back to the estate was somber. The adrenaline was fading, leaving behind the bruising reality of the night. Ash sat in the back of the limo, icing his hand. Malva was typing furiously on a laptop. Serena was carefully removing pins from her hair. It was a test, Malva said, breaking the silence. The brooch was a receiver. Someone was controlling the Gallade remotely. They wanted to see how you react to collateral damage situations. Solana, Ash said. Likely, Malva agreed, but the tech, it's advanced. It overrides the Pokeball's recall beam and bypasses the trainer's bond. It forces the Pokémon into a berserker state. It separates them, Ash whispered. She said it on the balcony. She thinks bonds are a weakness. She's building a weapon that severs them. He looked at Pikachu, who was curled up asleep on his lap. She's going to weaponize every Pokemon in Kalos against us, Ash realized. Serena reached over, taking his uninjured hand. Then we stop her. We have the brooch pieces. Shauna can analyze them. I can do more than that, Shauna said from the front seat. She turned around, holding up a small, blinking chip she had fished out of the debris. I hacked the local Wi-Fi while you were fighting. I traced the signal burst back to its source before Serena smashed it. Ash looked at the pink-haired girl in surprise. You did? I told you, Shauna grinned tiredly. I'm not just a pretty face. I know where the signal came from. Where? Malva asked, poised over her keyboard. Shauna's face darkened. The Lumiose Badlands. Specifically, an old geothermal power plant listed as decommissioned. Ash sat up, the exhaustion vanishing from his eyes. The Guardian was back. Decommissioned, Ash muttered. Perfect place for a secret lab. He looked out the window at the passing moon. Get some sleep, Ash ordered his team. Tomorrow, we're not going to a party, we're going to war. Chapter 3 End. Chapter 4. The hollow plague. The Lumiose Badlands were a scar on the face of the region. Located 300 miles south of the capital, it was a geologic graveyard, an expanse of cracked red earth, geysers of sulfurous steam, and jagged rock formations that looked like broken teeth biting into the sky. Nothing grew here. Even ground-type Pokemon, usually at home in the grit, avoided the sector. Heat signatures are dropping, Shauna murmured, tapping the screen of her wrist-mounted computer. It's 40 degrees Celsius out there, but inside that canyon, it's near freezing. The team lay prone on a ridge overlooking a massive depression in the earth. They had traded their gala attire for tactical gear. Ash wore a matte black vest over a gray combat shirt, his cap pulled low. Malva was in full stealth gear, looking like a shadow given form. Serena and Shauna wore reinforced field jackets. Endothermic reaction, Malva whispered, peering through high-powered binoculars. Whatever they're doing down there, it's sucking the energy right out of the air. Below them sat the decommissioned geothermal plant. It was a brutalist structure of rusted iron and concrete, half buried in the canyon wall. But while the exterior looked abandoned, the security did not. Drone patrols moved in silent, synchronized loops. No guards, Ash noted. Just machines. Solana doesn't trust people. Machines can be hacked, Shauna said, pulling a cable from her pack. But I need to get to a hard line. The wireless jamming is too strong here. Then we go in, Ash said. He looked at his team. Stealth is priority. We don't know what's in there, and I don't want to bring the roof down on us if it's unstable. Serena, you stick with Shauna. Malva, you're with me on point. Malva smirked, checking the magazine of a flare gun she'd insisted on bringing. Leading from the front. How noble. Just try to keep up, Ash said. He signaled Pikachu. They moved down the ridge, sliding through the blind spots of the drone patrols with practiced ease. Ash moved differently now. Before the war, he would have charged in, shouting a challenge. Now, he moved like Greninja, silent, efficient, lethal. They reached the perimeter fence. Shauna used her Ivysaur's vine whip to silently cut a hole in the mesh. They slipped through, the rusted metal groaning softly in the wind. The entrance to the facility was a heavy blast door. Shauna jacked her datapad into the external keypad. Her fingers flew across the holographic interface. Encryption is weird, she muttered, frowning. It's not League code. It's not Team Rocket. It's math. Like pure algorithmic sequences. Solana, Serena whispered. Click. The light turned green. The heavy door hissed, sliding open just enough for them to slip inside. The interior was a jarring contrast to the rusted exterior. It was a sterile white corridor, lit by harsh fluorescent strips. The air was frigid, biting at their exposed skin. And it was quiet. Too quiet. I don't like this, Serena said, her hand hovering over Delphox's Pokeball. It feels like a tomb. They moved deeper. The facility opened up into a massive central chamber, a cavernous space filled with rows of floor-to-ceiling glass tanks. Ash stopped dead. Inside the tanks were Pokemon, hundreds of them. Golems, Machamps, Noivern, even a few rare dragons like Haxorus. But they weren't moving. They were floating in a translucent, gray liquid. Their eyes were open, staring blankly at nothing. Tubes were hooked into their spines, pulsing with a faint, violet light. "My God," Shauna breathed, covering her mouth. "They're batteries," Malva said, her voice devoid of its usual mockery. She walked up to a tank containing a talonflame. She placed a gloved hand on the glass. "Look at the readout. Emotional resonance. 0%. Bioenergy output. 100%. "She's stripping them," Ash said, his voice trembling with suppressed rage. "She's taking their will, their bond, and converting it into raw power." "Ash," Serena called out from a console station, "you need to see this." Ash walked over. On the screen was a schematic of the facility. The energy being drained from the Pokémon was being funneled down, deep into the earth, into a massive central core labeled Project Silence. "What is she powering?" Ash asked. "Not what," Shauna said, scrolling through the data. "Who?" "The files reference a vessel, something biological that can hold the energy of the ultimate weapon without dying." Suddenly, the lights in the facility turned red. "Intruder alert, Sector 4. "They know we're here," Malva hissed. "Ambush." The vents in the ceiling burst open. Figures dropped down. They weren't standard grunts. They were clad in sleek, gray armor that covered their faces entirely. No eye slits, just smooth sensors. They moved with unnatural silence, their boots making no sound on the metal floor. "The silencers. Take them down," Ash roared. "Pikachu, Thunderbolt." Pikachu unleashed a massive arc of yellow lightning. The lead silencer raised a hand. A device on its palm flashed. The sound of the thunder was sucked away, absolute silence, and the electricity dissipated harmlessly into the air, absorbed by the suit. "They have dampeners," Shauna yelled. "Energy attacks won't work." "Then we get physical," Ash commanded. "Greninja." Ash threw the ball. Greninja materialized, immediately assessing the threat. Cut. Greninja dashed forward, forming white blades of energy. He slashed at the lead silencer. The soldier ducked with impossible speed, sweeping Greninja's legs. Greninja flipped backward, landing on a tank. 3 more silencers dropped behind Serena and Shauna. "Brakeson, flamethrower!" Serena cried. The fire was absorbed just like the lightning. The silencer lunged, grabbing Brakeson by the throat. "No!" Serena screamed. She grabbed a metal pipe from the floor and swung it at the soldier's helmet. It connected with a dull thud. The soldier didn't flinch, but it dropped Brakeson to backhand Serena. She flew backward, skidding across the floor. "Serena!" Ash's head snapped around. His eyes flared. "Greninja, help her!" Greninja abandoned the duel, vanishing and reappearing in front of Serena to block the next strike. "We're getting swarmed," Malva yelled. She was fighting 2 of them, using her own martial arts skills, dodging punches that cracked the concrete floor. "Ash, we need to retreat. We can't fight them in a confined space." "Shauna, get the data and get to the exit," Ash ordered, stepping into the fray. He punched a silencer in the faceplate, the impact jarring his arm, but he didn't stop. He swept the leg, knocking the soldier down, and Pikachu slammed an iron tail onto the helmet, cracking it. "I'm trying." Shauna was at the console, desperately downloading the files. Just 10 seconds. A silencer on the upper catwalk raised a weapon, a heavy, shoulder-mounted cannon. "RPG!" Malva screamed. Ash looked up. "Pikachu, intercept." Pikachu sprang into the air, intercepting the missile with an electro ball. The explosion was massive. It blew out the catwalk. Debris rained down. The floor beneath Shauna cracked. "Shauna!" The floor gave way. With a scream, Shauna and the console plummeted into the darkness of the lower levels. "Shauna!" Ash ran to the edge of the pit. It was pitch black down there. "She's gone," Malva said, grabbing Ash's shoulder as he looked ready to jump. "Ash, look! The structural integrity is failing. If you jump, you bury us all." Ash shook her off. He looked down into the abyss. He couldn't feel Shauna's aura. The dampening field in the facility was too strong. "We have to go down there," Ash growled. "There's a service elevator on the north side," Serena said, clutching her bruised ribs. "We can get to her. But we have to clear the room first." Ash turned back to the silencers. There were 10 of them left. He took a deep breath. The air around him began to shimmer. The water molecules in the air condensed. Greninja, Ash said, his voice terrifyingly calm. Take the limiters off. Greninja stood up. The water veil exploded outward. It took the form of the giant shuriken on its back. But this time, the water wasn't blue. It was dark, churning like a storm ocean. Kill them, Ash whispered. It was a massacre. Ash Greninja moved faster than the dampeners could track. It didn't use energy projection. It used the water shuriken as a physical melee weapon. It sliced through the armor like paper. Ash moved with him. Every punch Ash threw, Greninja mirrored with a strike of hydrokinetic force. They were a blur of violence. In 30 seconds, the silencers were down. Move, Ash said, not even looking at the fallen enemies. He ran toward the service elevator. Shauna's perspective: darkness, pain, the smell of oil and rust. Shauna groaned, pushing a piece of rebar off her legs. She coughed, the dust coating her throat. Ivysaur, she whispered. Sore. A weak cry came from her left. She fumbled for her flashlight. The beam cut through the gloom. She was in a sub-basement. Pipes hissed steam around her. Ivysaur was shaken, but okay. We're alive, she whispered, hugging the bulb Pokemon. Okay. Okay. Ash will come. He always comes. She looked around. She was in a maintenance tunnel. The only way was forward. We have to find a way up, she told herself. Think, Shauna. You're not a fighter. You're a puzzle solver. Look for the pattern. She limped down the corridor. The air here was warmer, and there was a sound, a rhythmic thumping, like a massive heartbeat. She came to a heavy door. It was slightly ajar. She peeked through. Her eyes went wide. It was the core. A spherical chamber, bathed in violet light. In the center, suspended in a magnetic field, was something small. It looked like a crystal. A diamond, pink and glittering. But inside the diamond was a Pokemon. It was a Diancie. But it wasn't normal. Veins of black corruption were pulsing through the crystal body. It was screaming, a silent, psychic scream that Shauna felt in her teeth. The jewel of life, Shauna realized, remembering the legends. She's mutating a mythical Pokemon. Standing in front of the core was a woman in a lab coat. Not Solana. A younger scientist, taking notes. Resonance at 80%, the scientist muttered. Subject is resisting the hollow process. Increase the pain stimulus. Shauna felt a flash of hot anger. She looked at Ivysaur. Vine whip, she whispered. Quietly, grab that technician. Ivysaur nodded. 2 vines snaked out from the bulb, sliding across the floor like green snakes. The vines wrapped around the scientist's ankles. Yank. The scientist yelped as she was pulled off her feet, slamming face first into the floor. Shauna sprinted out, grabbing a discarded wrench and holding it over the woman. Turn it off, Shauna yelled, her voice shaking but fierce. Turn it off right now. The scientist looked up, glasses askew. You can't be down here. Turn it off. Shauna pressed the cold metal of the wrench against the woman's neck. I can't, the scientist stammered. It's automated. If I stop the sequence abruptly, the feedback will kill the Diancie. Shauna looked at the suffering Pokemon. The psychic screams were getting louder in her head. Help me, cold, so cold. We have to dampen the input, Shauna said, her mind racing. She looked at the console. It was complex, but it was just a flow of energy. Like water in a pipe. Ivysaur, use leech seed on the power conduits. Soar. Ivysaur fired the seeds. They latched onto the thick power cables feeding the machine. Vines erupted, digging into the rubber insulation. Drain it, Shauna commanded. The vines began to glow. The violet light in the chamber dimmed. The energy was being siphoned off, grounded into the earth through Ivysaur's roots. The Diancie's eyes fluttered open. It looked at Shauna. Thank you. Suddenly, the blast doors behind Shauna exploded inward. Ash stood there, Greninja at his side, water veils swirling. Malva and Serena were right behind him. Shauna! Ash yelled, seeing her standing over the scientist. Ash! The machine, Shauna pointed, it's hurting her. Ash saw the Diancie. He saw the torture device. Greninja, Ash said, his voice low. Cut the cables. Greninja moved. A single, precise slash severed the main power coupling. The machine whined and died. The magnetic field collapsed. The Diancie fell. Ash caught her before she hit the ground. She was cold to the touch. Her pink diamonds were dull. Is she? Serena asked, running up. She's alive, Ash said, feeling a faint pulse, but barely. The facility began to shake. Red lights flashed. Critical failure. Core meltdown imminent. Ivysaur drained too much. The scientist laughed hysterically from the floor. You broke the containment. The residual energy is going to blow this place sky high. We need to leave, Malva said, hauling the scientist up by her collar. Now. The elevator is too slow, Ash said. He looked up at the ceiling of the underground chamber. It was thick concrete. Can we blast through? Serena asked. Not with just us, Ash said. He looked at the Diancie in his arms. Her eyes opened weakly. Together, a voice echoed in Ash's mind. The Diancie raised a hand. A weak pink light glowed. Ash nodded. Okay. Everyone, grab on. Serena, Shauna, and Malva grabbed Ash. Malva held the prisoner. Greninja. Help Diancie focus. Ash shared his aura with the weakened mythical Pokemon. Greninja added his power. Diamond Storm. Diancie unleashed a storm of diamonds, not as an attack, but as a drill. A vortex of crystal tore upward, shredding the concrete ceiling, the floors above, and the roof of the facility. They shot up through the hole, riding the updraft of energy. They burst out into the hot afternoon sun of the Badlands, landing hard on the red dust. Behind them, the ground rumbled. A massive implosion swallowed the geothermal plant. The earth collapsed in on itself, burying the horrors and the hollowed Pokemon below. Ash stood up, dusting himself off. He was still holding Diancie. Is it over? Shauna asked, hugging Ivysaur. No, Ash said, looking at the smoking crater. We saved her, but we lost the others. He looked at the scientist Malva was holding. Malva, Ash said. Interrogate her. I want to know everything she knows about Solana's plan. Malva smiled, a cruel, sharp expression, with pleasure. Ash looked at the Diancie. She was sleeping now, exhausted. Solana isn't just building a weapon, Ash said to Serena. She's trying to replace Arceus. She wants to rewrite the laws of nature. Serena wiped soot from her face. Then we have to stop her. But Ash, the League isn't going to like that we destroyed a power plant. I don't care what the League likes, Ash said, turning toward their transport. We're done playing by the rules. But as they walked away, Malva lingered for a second, looking at her datapad. A message had just come through. It was from an encrypted number. The frame is set. Phase 3 begins. Do not miss your cue. Malva looked at Ash's back, then at the message. She hesitated. For a brief second, she considered deleting it. Then, with a heavy sigh, she closed the pad. I'm sorry, Ash, she whispered to the wind. She followed them to the ship. Chapter 4 end. Chapter 5. The Architect's Trap. The Guardian's estate felt less like a fortress and more like a besieged island. The frantic energy of the infiltration was replaced by the grinding exhaustion of bureaucratic and political warfare. Ash had spent the night securing Diancie. The mythical Pokemon was now resting in a specialized energy field constructed by Professor Sycamore, who had been flown in secretly. The captured scientist, meanwhile, was refusing to talk, maintaining a robotic loyalty to Solana. Ash stood in the war room, staring at the holographic projection of the destroyed geothermal plant. The council is going ballistic, Serena said, rubbing the tension from her temples. She had been on the phone with Diantha for 2 hours straight, trying to mitigate the damage. Valerius called it an unlawful act of ecological terrorism. They want you to surrender your badge, your authority, and Malva for immediate arraignment. They're not angry about the plant, Ash said, his voice flat. They're angry that I uncovered their secret weapon. That may be true, Malva said, walking in. She was composed, wearing League-issued clothing that made her look like a returning Elite Four member. A deliberate choice to project loyalty to the establishment. But you committed a political sin, Ash. You destroyed a publicly listed asset, regardless of the horrors inside. They have legal grounds now. We saved a Diancie, Shauna countered, looking up from the console where she was running diagnostics on the melted brooch and the captured scientist's datapad. That should override everything. It won't, Malva shook her head. Solana has been planting seeds. She's been funding half the council's campaigns. She is the architect of this outrage. They will use this as a pretext to dissolve the Guardian title and arrest you. Can they? Ash asked Diantha over the comms system. Diantha's voice, usually so steady, sounded tired and distant. They can freeze your access, Ash. They can surround the estate. Valerius is arguing that your autonomy clause only applies to the pursuit of Team Flare, not the destruction of League-sanctioned infrastructure. He wants a vote of no confidence. It's happening tonight. So we fight fire with fire, Ash said, slamming his fist onto the table. Malva, you know Solana's political structure better than anyone. Where is she vulnerable? We need evidence of her link to Flare, something undeniable. Malva didn't hesitate. She pulled up a map of Lumios. Solana has a secondary administrative office. It's a League-approved facility, used for humanitarian aid. But I know the schematics. There's a sub-level archive, accessible only by biometric lock and a triple encryption key. What's in it? Serena asked. I don't know, Malva admitted, meeting Ash's eyes. But I know Solana is there now, meeting with Valerius and the heads of the PDF. If anyone is holding the smoking gun, it's her. Ash looked at the timing. The council vote is at 2300. We hit that office at 2200. We get the evidence, we crash the meeting, and we expose her before they can strip my authority. Ash, it's a trap, Serena warned. She knows we'll retaliate. She wants us to come to her. Then we oblige, Ash said, walking toward the armory door. We won't go through the front door. Shauna, I need a quiet way in. Serena, you stay here. Protect Diancie and Sycamore. Ash, I'm coming with you, Serena insisted. No, Ash said, turning to her. His gaze was absolute. The estate is the heart of our operation. If the League storms it, I need you here to protect our assets. I need the heart to be strong. He looked at Malva. Malva, you know the way in. You're with me. Malva nodded, her face grim. As ordered, Guardian. She avoided his gaze for the first time since their battle. The administrative office of the Ascendancy Foundation sat on the 70th floor of a downtown skyscraper. It was a beacon of sterile order, glowing softly in the twilight. Ash and Malva were dropped onto the roof via a stealth shuttle. The wind at this height was severe, but Ash's aura kept his footing steady. Rooftop access is sealed, Malva whispered into the comms. We use the service shaft near the exhaust fans. It leads directly to the data archives. They rappelled down the side of the building, moving like ninjas against the glass and steel. Ash was keenly aware of Malva moving just above him. She was focused, decisive, but there was a tremor in her movements that had nothing to do with the wind. Shauna, you have eyes on the service shaft camera? Ash murmured into the comms. Got it, Ash. Clearing the motion sensors now. You have 30 seconds of clear movement once you breach. That sub-level is deep. They reached the exhaust vent. Malva pulled out a plasma cutter and sliced a clean circle through the steel panel. After you, Malva said, her voice dry. Ash slipped inside. He moved through the cramped, hot shaft, Malva close behind. They reached the end, a maintenance door leading to the sub-level stairwell. Ash kicked the door open. They burst into the stairwell. It was empty, too easy. Archives are on the third basement level, Malva pointed down. The meetings are happening on the 72nd floor. We need to go down, get the dirt, and go up. They ran down the stairs. 2 floors down, the alarm went off. Beep. Intruders detected. Jamming signal is active. Shauna yelled over the comms. Ash, they knew you were coming. I'm being blocked out. It was a trap, Ash hissed. The stairwell doors above them burst open. They were sealed off. Down, Ash ordered. They reached the third basement door. It was heavy, reinforced steel. Ash was about to try kicking it open when Malva stepped in front of him. This is a triple biometric lock, Malva said, her fingers flying over a hidden panel on the wall. It requires 3 unique genetic scans. Mine, Valerius, and Solana's. I can input mine, but I need 2 overrides. Can't you hack it? Not in time. The PDF tactical squad will be here in 60 seconds. We need to stop them now. Malva pressed her thumb against the reader. The first light turned green. Suddenly, a voice boomed from the ceiling speaker. Guardian Ketchum. Stand down. You are surrounded. Surrender or be deemed a fugitive. Valerius, Ash spat. It's over, Ash, Malva said, her voice shaking now. She turned to him, tears welling in her eyes, but her expression was steel. I am sorry, but they have me. They have my family. She reached inside her pocket and pulled out a small, metallic device. It wasn't a weapon, it was a data chip. I didn't betray you to Solana, Malva whispered fiercely. I betrayed you to the League. This chip contains the security override codes for the Guardian estate. I was supposed to disable your defenses right now. Ash stared at her, the confusion and fury warring in his expression. Why? Because if I didn't, Solana would have killed me and destroyed the entire estate with a seismic pulse. Malva's voice broke. This is the only way to save Serena and Shauna. When I hand this over, they'll believe I've disabled the estate. They will divert their forces there. Malva grabbed his arm, her grip surprisingly strong. You need to run. If they capture you, Solana wins. You can't save them if you're in a cage. Before Ash could react, she pushed him hard toward a nearby maintenance access grate. I trust you to survive, Malva whispered. I trust you to come back and burn the system to the ground, now go. Ash saw the raw, genuine terror in her eyes, mixed with a defiant finality. She wasn't lying. He realized this was her choice, her ugly, agonizing attempt to protect the only person who had given her a second chance. He didn't hesitate. He smashed the grate open and slid into the pipe. As he disappeared, the stairwell doors above him burst open. Valerius, flanked by 10 PDF soldiers, stood there, aiming stun rifles. Freeze, Malva! Valerius bellowed. Where is Ketchum? Malva stood alone by the sealed door, her hands raised, the picture of surrender. Her face was blank, void of emotion, the mask of the old Elite Four returning. He went that way, Counselor, Malva said, pointing to the pipe Ash had just entered. But he was too fast. He abandoned me. He has abandoned the League. She dropped the data chip to the floor. The estate codes are on that chip. My work here is done. Ash burst out of the pipe onto a darkened roof 3 blocks away. He was covered in soot and grime, his heart pounding a frantic rhythm against his ribs. He had Greninja out, but he felt utterly exposed. Betrayed. The word echoed in his mind, sharp and cold. He looked back at the skyscraper. He didn't see Malva pointing the way. He saw the terror in her eyes, the desperate need to save Serena and Shauna. He understood the choice she had made. It was agonizingly tactical. He trusts you to survive. He was now a fugitive, separated from his team, his authority dissolved. Ash. Ash. What happened? The comms went down. We're surrounded. Serena's panicked voice crackled over the emergency frequency on his wrist. Serena, listen to me. Ash yelled into his comms, running across the rooftop. Malva didn't betray us. She saved you. She handed them the fake estate codes. The League is on its way to the estate right now. Fake codes? The estate is compromised. You have to leave. Get Diancie and Sycamore out. Get Shauna and run. Use the canyon coordinates. Go off-grid. I'll draw fire. But Ash, where will you go? They'll hunt you down. I'll be fine, Ash said, leaping across a 10-foot gap between buildings. I'm not the target. The Guardian is the target. Once they think they've caged the symbol, they'll relax. Ash reached the end of the roof. He saw the flicker of police lights converging on his position. He couldn't use his Pokémon. The whole city would know where he was. Serena, listen to Malva's last instruction, Ash said, his voice dropping to a fierce, final whisper. We need to burn the system. I'll find you, stay alive. He cut the comms. Ash looked out over the sprawling, arrogant, beautiful city of Lumios. He was alone, hunted, and powerless in the face of political decree. From the highest spire of the League headquarters, Grand Duchess Solana stood on a viewing deck, sipping a glass of iced tea. She watched the police sirens below converge on the scattered locations. He chose survival over capture, Solana murmured to herself, her eyes cold. A predictable, if somewhat messy, variable. The estate is secured, Your Grace, a silencer guard reported. Valerius is celebrating his victory. Let him celebrate the shell, Solana said, turning away from the window. The true power is elsewhere. The Guardian is a pawn removed from the board. Now, we secure the Diancie and accelerate project. Silence. Meanwhile, back at the Guardian's estate, sirens wailed outside the gates. Serena, her face stained with tears, was already moving. Sycamore, you and Diancie go through the hidden tunnel, Serena commanded, strapping on a backpack. Shauna, you erase everything. Every file, every trace. We meet at the rendezvous point in the canyon. Malva. Shauna looked up, her expression heartbroken. She really sold us out, didn't she? Serena looked at the security panel Malva was supposed to have disabled. It was, in fact, fully operational. Serena smiled grimly. No, Shauna, Serena said, pulling her Delphox's Pokeball. She just bought us a head start. And now we show them what happens when you corner the heart. Chapter 5 End. Chapter 6. The Winding Path. The world, stripped of luxury and league authority, was a cold, demanding place. Ash ran on instinct. For 2 days, he and Pikachu were ghosts in the vast, shadowed forests bordering the mountain ridge. He traveled solely by night, navigating by the stars and the feel of the wind. He shed the tactical vest and kept only the necessities: medical supplies, minimal rations, and a handful of Pokeballs. The silence of his solitude was absolute, broken only by the crunch of pine needles under his boots and the soft padding of Greninja, whom he kept out for constant perimeter defense. He had deliberately avoided large towns and high roads, knowing the PDF tactical squads would be sweeping the area, looking for the visible symbol of the Guardian. The true weight of Malva's betrayal, or rather, her desperate sacrifice, settled into his bones. It wasn't the loss of resources that hurt. It was the realization that he was alone because she had to choose between his survival and her own integrity. He had to trust that she was playing the long game. Doubt was a luxury he could not afford. If she's not loyal, they've already won, he told himself, tightening his grip on his belt. She bought them time. I will not waste it. His body, fueled by adrenaline and the residual power of his bond, ran on less than 4 hours of sleep. He was training Greninja constantly, pushing the limits of the synchronization. He needed the full control that the Elite Four demanded. He needed to be able to wield the power without the violent rage that had terrified Malva in the facility. He needed a teacher. He found the secluded path leading to the ninja village not by choice, but by necessity. Cornered by a PDF patrol near a waterfall, he had been forced into the ancient, hidden trails, leading him eventually to the same sacred grounds where he and Greninja had mastered their unique power. He found the elder sitting by a quiet stream, polishing an ancient shuriken. You have come back a commander, but you wear the soul of a fugitive, Ash Ketchum, the elder said, not looking up. Ash knelt, exhaustion pulling at his muscles. They stripped my title, they think I'm running. You are, the elder finally looked at him, his eyes sharp and knowing. But you run towards the truth, not away from it. Your body is ready for battle, but your spirit is chaotic. You use the bond as a shield for rage. Rage gets things done, Ash argued, thinking of the hollowed Pokemon. Rage is a fleeting wind, the elder countered, gesturing to the stream. Your power is water. Always flowing, always adapting, quiet until it is absolute. When you sync with Greninja, you do not merge. You become a conduit for your life energy, your aura. For the next 3 days, Ash trained under the elder, not by fighting, but by meditating. He learned to feel the current of energy running through his own body, the same current that allowed him to see through Greninja's eyes. He learned to control the transformation, not triggering it by fear or aggression, but activating it through absolute, crystal-clear focus. It was a terrifying discipline, forcing him to face the emotional volatility that Solana had labeled a weakness. The chaos subsided. The fire within him was tempered by the flow of water. He was still the relentless Ash, but now, he was deliberate. Meanwhile, in the dense, silent protection of the winding woods, an ancient, virtually impassable forest near the Pokemon village, Serena was proving that leadership was more than just shouting commands. Their group was a fragile caravan: Serena, the reluctant leader; Shauna, the technical mind; Professor Sycamore, the burdened physician; and Diancie, the sleeping, crystalline liability. They were hiding in a makeshift shelter, a natural cave Shauna had secured and camouflaged with vines and moss. We need food that isn't emergency rations, Serena whispered to Shauna, checking the perimeter one morning. We need protein. And Sycamore is almost out of the stabilizer for Diancie. I can try to hack the local pharmacy system, but they'll trace the request instantly, Shauna said, rubbing her aching wrist. She had been tirelessly trying to decrypt the data from the smashed brooch. No, No traceable currency, Serena said firmly, we trade. Serena had learned that the forest was home to small, secluded clans of trainers who distrusted the League. Using her performance skills, she crafted a persona, a traveling healer and purveyor of herbal remedies. She used her knowledge of medicinal Pokemon plants and her natural charm to trade supplies with the wary forest dwellers, ensuring their security remained intact. She also took responsibility for Diancie. The mythical Pokemon was still weak, unable to sustain its diamond form. It's not just physical exhaustion, Sycamore explained, tending to the pink crystal creature. The hollow process targets the emotional core, the source of its power. We need to reignite its connection to life. Serena sat beside Diancie every day, talking softly, not about battle or fear, but about the beautiful things they were fighting for, performances, sunrises, the taste of fresh baked goods. I need you to wake up, Serena said one evening, holding Diancie's small, cold hand. Ash is alone out there, fighting the whole world. He's doing it for us. We need to be strong for him, too. And then, one morning, Diancie's light returned. It wasn't the brilliant pink of its full power, but a soft, steady pulse. Diancie sat up, looking directly at Serena. The love. The bond. It is not weak. It is the greatest force. Diancie's voice echoed in their minds, clear and resonant. I am yours, now. And I will protect you. It was Shauna who found him. Ash had given them vague coordinates, a mountain pass near an abandoned monastery that had once served as a rendezvous point for the ninja village. It was an area too remote, too dangerous, for the League to patrol heavily. The problem was that the League knew he would go remote. They had blanketed the region with digital surveillance. He's moving too fast and too quiet, Shauna muttered, staring at a static satellite map back in the cave. He's not leaving a digital footprint, but he's not leaving a physical one either. No one has seen him. Then we stop looking for the Guardian and start looking for the boy, Serena suggested. Where does he go when he's scared or determined? Where did he train before? Shauna focused on the ninja village area. She started hacking the infrastructure that should be there but wasn't, the local power grid, the forestry communication relays, the seismic monitors. She found it. A tiny, almost imperceptible hiccup in the thermal signature of the mountain range. A repeated, rhythmic energy spike that wasn't a geyser or a fault line. It was a controlled discharge of bioenergy, hidden deep within a canyon. It's the bond, Shauna gasped, recognizing the signature from her data on Greninja. He's practicing the transformation, and he's doing it in the same place every day at sunrise. She calculated the coordinates. They traveled for 2 grueling days. Serena led the way, navigating the terrain with surprising skill. Sycamore, though weary, provided vital protection with his alakazam. Diancie floated gently behind them, encased in a simple, protective diamond shell. They reached the canyon rim just as the first sliver of sun crested the peaks. Below them, on a flat stone clearing, a figure stood silhouetted against the dawn. Ash. He was facing the sun, his eyes closed. Greninja was beside him. Then, Ash opened his eyes. The blue light flared around him, flowing into Greninja. The water veil erupted. The massive shuriken formed on Greninja's back, not in rage, but in perfect, calm discipline. He was in total control. The Guardian, forged in the wild. Serena gasped, tears streaming down her face. She didn't move. She wanted to savor the sight of him, strong, alive, and utterly committed. Shauna, meanwhile, was frantically pulling up her laptop. I have to get a message to him. He's still using emergency comms. It's too dangerous to call him. But before she could input the frequency, a small, quiet ping sounded on her computer. It wasn't an external message. It was a League internal memo that had suddenly bypassed her firewalls and downloaded directly into her secure hard drive. What is this? Shauna muttered. The memo was heavily encrypted, but she recognized the internal file naming conventions of the Elite Four. She realized where it had come from. Malva. The memo was a schedule. A highly confidential movement plan for Grand Duchess Solana. She was moving a massive shipment of hollow technology from the capital to a secondary stronghold near the coast. Attached was a single, non-encrypted word, Azoth. Ash, Shauna whispered, looking down at the powerful man below. It's Malva. She's giving us the target. Serena nodded, wiping her eyes. She looked at the raw power of Ash below, then at the critical intel in Shauna's hands. She looked at Diancie, ready to fight. "It's time to stop running," Serena said, her voice firm. "We hit the convoy. We take back the narrative." They descended the path, the sun rising over the mountains. The reunion would be emotional, but brief. The time for mourning was over. The time for the counterattack had begun. Chapter 6 End. Chapter 7. The phoenix's gambit. The air in the mountain cave was cool, carrying the scent of pine and gunpowder. Ash stood over the holographic map projected onto the stone floor, his posture radiating a calm, focused authority that had been absent since he took the Guardian title. Serena and Shauna were perched on rocks, their faces illuminated by the green glow of the map. Sycamore was tending to Diancie, who pulsed with a soft, confident light. Malva's leaked file, the convoy schedule, was the centerpiece of the discussion. "The convoy is moving the Azoth catalyst," Ash explained, tapping a point on the coastal highway. Malva's note said, "Azoth. It's the refined energy extracted from the hollows, highly unstable. Solana is moving it from the Badlands staging area to her coastal stronghold, her permanent base of operations." "The convoy is heavily armored," Shauna said, scrolling through the security details. 5 trucks, 2 armored cars, and a full detachment of silencers, plus likely air support. "We can't win a direct fight," Ash stated. "This is a heist and disruption operation. Serena, you and Delphox manage the environment. We need chaos, smoke, and deflection. Shauna, you're our eyes and ears. You need to hijack their command frequency and blind their GPS." "Got it," Shauna nodded, her earlier fear replaced by the excitement of the challenge. "I'll make them drive blind into a wall." "Diancie," Ash looked at the mythical Pokemon. "When the Azoth is exposed, you are the only one who can contain or purify that energy. You are the shield." Diancie floated slightly, radiating quiet confidence. "I will contain the poison. I will protect the bonds." "Good," Ash finished, looking at Serena. "And you?" Serena stood up, meeting his gaze not with affection, but with the shared intensity of a partner in combat. "I manage the retreat. I ensure the heart gets out alive. Let's move." The ambush site was a narrow, high cliff section of the coastal highway, overlooking the Azure Bay. The road was flanked by dense, dry scrubland, perfect kindling. They waited in position, hours later, the afternoon sun beating down on the cracked asphalt. Ash and Greninja were hidden 50 feet above the highway, camouflaged amongst the boulders. Ash's control was absolute. He felt Greninja's stillness, his pulse matching the water types in a calm, rhythmic flow. "Convoy sighted." 5 minutes out, Shauna's voice hissed over the comms. She was positioned a mile back in a secure observation post. Ash waited. 3 minutes. 2. Now, Serena, go. Serena stood up from her hiding place and hurled 3 flares into the scrubland bordering the highway. Delphox. Mystical fire. Maximize the smoke. Delphox unleashed torrents of fire, controlled and precise, aiming only at the dry brush. Instantly, black, choking smoke billowed across the highway. The convoy hit the smoke bank like a brick wall. "They're slowing," Shauna reported. "Now, Ash, hit the escort." Ash moved. He didn't jump onto the road. He and Greninja descended the cliff face in a blur of motion, a controlled, silent plummet. They landed on the roof of the lead armored car. Before the silencers inside could react, Ash Greninja, activating only partially to conserve energy, smashed the roof plating with a high-powered cut. The roof buckled, disabling the comms array. Pikachu, Electroweb. Blind the back 5. Pikachu shot a massive, charged net backward, enveloping the remaining armored trucks in a web of static and light, effectively freezing them. The front armored car door burst open. General Valerius, the High Counselor who had branded Ash a traitor, emerged, his face a mask of fury. "Catch him. You dare. Surrender or I'll have the whole area fire-bombed," Valerius shouted, throwing out 2 Pokeballs. Out came a Kinkeldor and a Mega Lucario, both crackling with battle intent. "Greninja, take the Lucario. Ash, I need you on the Kinkeldor." Ash dropped from the roof, landing opposite Valerius. He didn't send out his next Pokemon. He didn't need to. "You're fighting the wrong war, Valerius," Ash said, his voice hard. "You are a traitor to the League. The League is rotten," Ash yelled. dodging a massive hammer blow from the Kinkelder. He ducked under the swing and delivered a non-lethal, focused thunder punch to the Pokemon's abdomen. The move, controlled and precise, didn't knock it out, but it winded the huge fighting type. Meanwhile, Greninja was struggling against the Mega Lucario. The Lucario's speed and psychic foresight made it a difficult opponent. The doors of the Azoth truck finally opened. Two silencers emerged, carrying heavy thermal rifles. They ignored the Pokemon battle and locked onto the truck's cargo. A single, massive, cylindrical container, glowing faintly purple. The Azoth. Suddenly, Shauna's voice, clear and cold, cut through the convoy's restricted frequency. To all Ascendancy personnel, your command protocols have been compromised. Repeat, Tactical Deployment Alpha is locked out. Convoy self-destruct sequence, Code Phoenix. The silencers froze. Valerius looked up, confused. Malva. What are you doing? Valerius shrieked into his comms. The cylindrical Azoth container on the truck bed blinked rapidly. A tiny, League-issue electronic tag, identical to the one Malva was forced to wear, was affixed to the side. Beep. 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 Malva, Ash realized, looking up at the blinking container. She didn't just give us the schedule, she rigged the payload. The Azoth container detonated. It wasn't an explosion of fire. It was an implosion of light and pure energy. A deafening, localized shockwave of purple and gray light erupted, tearing apart the truck bed and throwing the silencers backward. The Azoth, now exposed, began to expand rapidly, threatening to consume the entire convoy route. Diancie. Now, Ash roared. From the cliff edge, a pink flash shot out. Diancie, encased in her diamond shell, flew onto the highway. The mythical Pokemon placed herself directly between the expanding Azoth energy and the trapped Lucario and Kinkelder. Diancie focused, unleashing a powerful, contained Diamond Storm, not as an attack, but as a stabilizing force. The diamonds formed a massive crystalline cage around the Azoth energy, shielding the surroundings from the toxic release. The purple energy slammed against the crystalline prison, struggling to escape. Retrieve the payload, Ash yelled, turning his focus back to the immediate threat. He slammed his heel down, sending a localized shockwave that disoriented Valerius. Greninja, Night Slash. Greninja, energized by the turn in the battle, overwhelmed the Mega Lucario, forcing it back into its Pokeball. Valerius, defeated and enraged, pulled out a final, strange-looking spherical object. Solana predicted your interference, traitor. This is a forced extraction device. You will not stop project. Silence. He hurled the sphere. It expanded, engulfing the Azoth Diamond Containment Sphere. A magnetic grapple locked the sphere in place. Valerius ran to the remaining armored car, punching the roof in a frantic signal for retreat. They're running. Serena shouted from her position, her eyes wide. They're taking the container with them. Not if I can help it. Ash saw the armored car accelerate, dragging the massive Azoth containment sphere behind it. The sphere was too large for a single Pokemon to stop. But Ash was no longer just a single trainer. He ran towards the cliff. Greninja, Pikachu, follow my lead. Ash reached the edge and leapt off. Midair, he activated the bond, the water veil roaring to life. Greninja caught him, cushioning his fall, then launched him outward, toward the retreating convoy. Serena. Delphox, focus the fire on the cliff face. Serena, understanding instantly, commanded Delphox to unleash a full-power flamethrower on the rock above the highway. The heat cracked the stone. Ash hit the ground running. He ran alongside the accelerating armored car, channeling his aura into a single, kinetic punch. He smashed his fist into the thick armor plating on the side of the car, cracking the metal. The car swerved violently. Pikachu, Volt Tackle, full power. Pikachu, now synchronized with the bond, hit the car's rear axle with a blinding blue bolt of electricity. The car lost control. It spun, slamming into the weakened cliff face. The impact, coupled with the destabilization caused by Delphox's fire, caused a localized rockslide. Boulders rained down, blocking the road and trapping the armored car. Ash stood over the wreck, breathing heavily. He was physically and spiritually drained, but triumphant. The door of the armored car slowly opened. General Valerius stumbled out, dazed. Ash walked up to him. The Azoth is ours, Ash said, kicking away a stun rifle. Hours later, deep in the safety of a secluded forest rendezvous point, the 4 members of the court stood over the massive, crystalline Azoth container. They had succeeded, but at great cost. Valerius and the Silencers were captured, but the victory was temporary. They were fugitives now, enemies of the state. Valerius won't talk, Sycamore sighed, examining the Azoth container. But this is powerful. Solana needed this to finalize her vessel. She thinks she's unstoppable, Ash said, looking into the containment field. She thinks we're chaotic and predictable. She was wrong about the prediction, Shauna said, looking up from her comms. Because she didn't account for the pivot. She didn't account for Malva. Suddenly, Ash's comms hissed to life. It was a secure, patched frequency. Ash. Can you hear me? It was Malva. Her voice was strained, thick with fatigue and fear, but utterly clear. Malva, Ash said, relief washing over him. You saved us. The bomb. The message. I had to make it look real, Malva whispered. I'm in custody, Ash. They arrested me immediately after the detonation. Valerius thinks I was trying to run away with the Azoth myself. Solana is the only one who knows the truth. We'll get you out, Ash promised fiercely. No you won't, Malva countered. Not yet. I am where I need to be. I am getting close to Solana. I know where she's moving the vessel. It's an old League stronghold, the Sea Citadel. But you have to hurry, Ash. She's accelerating the timeline. Why? Serena interjected, grabbing the comms from Ash. Why the sudden rush? Malva's voice dropped to a barely audible whisper, laced with fear. Diantha. The champion. Solana needed a major league figure to, voluntarily, undergo the hollow process to prove its viability to the world. A sacrifice. And she chose the only one with enough energy to sustain the vessel. Diantha is the vessel, Ash realized, the blood running cold in his veins. The process starts at midnight tomorrow, Malva said. If you don't stop it, she will drain Diantha's spirit, absorb the Azoth, and ascend. She will become the living anti-deity. Solana will have the power of a god, built on Diantha's corpse. We're coming for you, Ash swore. Don't. Focus on the Citadel, Malva commanded, her voice regaining its Elite Four authority. I'll try to find a way to disable the Citadel's defenses from the inside. But if I don't contact you again, you know what you have to do. The line went dead. Ash stood over the glowing Azoth, surrounded by his loyal court. They had their target, their intelligence, and a horrifying timeline. The Sea Citadel, Ash said, his voice hard as diamond. We move out at dawn. Chapter 7 End. Chapter 8, The Siege of the Sea Citadel. The Sea Citadel was a black fortress carved into the granite spine of a remote island chain, accessible only by air or submersible. It was an ancient League stronghold, now repurposed and heavily fortified by Grand Duchess Solana, its massive seawalls bristling with energy turrets. Ash hovered the repurposed League stealth shuttle 3 miles from the Citadel, cloaked in the pre-dawn darkness. The clock was ticking toward midnight. The Azoth container is rigged to the hull, Ash reported into the comms. Sycamore, is the shielding holding? Barely, Ash, Professor Sycamore's weary voice replied from the shuttle's cargo bay. Diancie is creating a continuous diamond storm barrier, but the Azoth's toxicity is immense. We must neutralize it quickly. We will, Ash said. He looked at the 3 women beside him. They were no longer the hopeful traveler, the performer, and the student. They were soldiers, their eyes sharp with determination. Shauna, last check on the satellite layout, Ash commanded. Shauna, strapped into the co-pilot seat, tapped her screen. The main entrance is blocked by an ultrasonic barrier, designed to repel psychic attacks. Too risky. We go in 2 teams. Serena, you and Sycamore take the lower vents, the old water intake. Ash, you and Pikachu hit the main wall for distraction and air defense clearance. And Diancie? Ash asked. Diancie is our payload, Serena cut in, adjusting her own comms. She comes in with the covert team. We secure the access point, then open the chamber for the neutralizing counter-strike. We move in 30 seconds. Ash nodded, looking at Serena. There was no time for sentiment, only trust. Be safe. You too, Guardian, she replied, a faint, focused smile touching her lips. Ash threw the shuttle into a steep dive, aiming straight for the Citadel's tallest turret. Pikachu, quick attack. Disable that radar. Pikachu shot out, a yellow blur against the dark stone, smashing into the main radar dish with a kinetic force that sent sparks flying. Beep. 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 The Citadel's main alarm shrieked across the island. Searchlights cut through the darkness, locking onto the diving shuttle. Greninja, take the turret, Ash commanded, ejecting from the bay doors. Ash Greninja materialized, the water veil roaring into existence. He launched a massive, targeted water shuriken that slammed into the anti-air turret, vaporizing the metal on impact. The battle was joined. Silencers in jetpacks erupted from the walls, aiming kinetic energy rifles at the airborne pair. Ash landed on the Citadel's main wall, the impact cracking the stone beneath his boots. He moved with cold efficiency, a human missile. He didn't rely on brute force. He used the speed and foresight of the Bond to dodge the focused fire, closing the distance to the enemy. He fought the silencers hand to hand, using Thunder Punch to neutralize their suits without causing excess structural damage. He was the distraction, the glorious, terrifying flare that drew every eye. Below the crashing waves, Serena and Sycamore breached the Sea Citadel's ancient water intake pipe. It was narrow, dark, and filled with stagnant, oily seawater. Sycamore, using his Alakazam's psychic powers, pushed the water away, creating a temporary dry tunnel. "Hurry, Serena," Sycamore grunted, his face slick with sweat. "I can't maintain this vacuum indefinitely." Serena pressed Diancie to her chest, the mythical Pokémon shivering slightly but maintaining the Azoth shield. Shauna crawled ahead, her small form barely fitting, leading the way. "Internal security grid is online," Shauna reported, panting. "Water pumps, electric nets, and, oh no, they released the aquatics." Massive, hollowed Gyarados and Sharpedo, their eyes dead white, slammed against the psychic barrier Alakazam maintained. They didn't feel pain, they only saw destruction. "Delphox, psychic," Serena ordered. She couldn't use fire in this enclosed space. Delphox unleashed a focused psychic blast that smashed the two Sharpedo back into the water, momentarily stunning them. "The main control room for the pump system is just ahead," Shauna urged. "If I can override the security here, it buys Ash 5 minutes of distraction on the main level." They reached the control room, a small, air-gapped cylinder. As Shauna frantically began tapping into the external port, the door behind them slammed shut. "Guardian Ketchum has breached Sector 4, a cold, synthesized voice announced from the speaker. "The covert team is contained." Serena spun around, Delphox ready. They were trapped. On the main wall, Ash felt the change in pressure. The silencers stopped their desperate attack and began to retreat to the interior. He knew it. The covert team was compromised. "Greninja, water shuriken. Tear up the wall," Ash roared, leaping into the interior courtyard. He was met by a massive force field snapping into place, blocking the Citadel's heart, the highest spire, where Diantha was being held. The force field was impenetrable. He slammed his fist against it. It held firm. Ash was trapped in the courtyard, alone against the newly arrived reinforcements. "Ash Ketchum," a voice echoed from the spire. Solana stood on the balcony, framed by violet light, her features serene but utterly triumphant. "Predictable. You came for the champion. You forget, I expected the hero's arrogance." "Where is Diantha?" Ash demanded, feeling the red haze of his old rage trying to break through his control. Preparing for her transcendence, Solana smiled. "And your little friends? They're drowning in the lower vents, thanks to my aquatics. Now, surrender. Or I will turn your beloved Greninja into the next Azoth source." Ash unleashed a frustrated, guttural cry. He threw Greninja at the force field, a full-power water shuriken. The field didn't flicker. Suddenly, the security lights in the courtyard blinked violently. They went from red to green, then to blinking yellow. Beep. Internal force field integrity compromised. The impenetrable barrier protecting the spire flickered, then collapsed entirely. Solana's placid expression shattered. "Impossible. I personally coded that matrix." "Ash. Go. It's open. It's Malva." Shauna's voice, faint and choked, cut through the emergency comms. Malva, from her prison, had found a way. She had sacrificed her political leverage, burning every piece of League-coded security knowledge she possessed to create this momentary breach. She is a traitor. Solana screamed, gesturing wildly. Silencers, stop him. Ash didn't hesitate. He didn't waste time on the remaining guards. He gave a sharp, thankful nod to the comms. A silent promise to Malva. And charged directly into the spire. Ash burst into the core chamber. The room was vast and circular, dominated by a massive crystalline device. The vessel, humming with dark energy. In the center of the device, suspended in a field of magnetic energy, was Diantha. The champion of Kalos was conscious, but barely. Her clothes were shredded, and her skin was pale. Tubes ran from her arms and chest into the crystalline matrix. The hollow process was in its initial stages. Her mega stone, floating above her head, was fading, its energy being slowly siphoned away. Ash, Diantha whispered, her voice barely a breath, her eyes pleading. It's too late. The matrix is primed. Standing guard over the console was a figure Ash recognized. Olympia, the psychic gym leader. But she was different. Her eyes, usually calm and prophetic, were wide and manic. She sees the future, Guardian, Solana's voice drawled from the entrance. She had flown up from the courtyard using a small jetpack. She sees the coming era of pure, emotionless stability. The price is only the loss of a few sentimental trainers. Olympia, don't do this, Ash yelled. The bonds must be severed. Olympia chanted, her hands flying over the console. Solana ignored them, focused entirely on the massive vessel. The final catalyst is required. Olympia, activate the signal. Bring the Azoth to the core. A powerful tractor beam shot out, slicing down through the Citadel's floors, heading straight for the lower vents. No, you don't, Ash screamed, sprinting toward the console. But Olympia raised her hand. A massive psychic wall slammed into Ash, throwing him against the far wall. Greninja was intercepted by the residual energy of the hollow process. Ash felt his ribs crack, but he pushed himself up. He was running out of time. Down in the submerged vents, Serena watched in horror as the tractor beam slammed into their location. Sycamore desperately tried to block it with Alakazam, but the power was overwhelming. We can't stop it, Sycamore yelled. It's pulling the Azoth to the spire. Serena looked at the massive, glowing Azoth container being dragged away. She looked at Shauna, who was pale but resolute. We have to go with it, Serena commanded. With the Azoth? Shauna stammered. It'll kill us. It's the only way to Ash. Serena grabbed Diancie and Shauna, hugging them tight. Delphox, full power psychic shield. Focus, now. The tractor beam seized the Azoth container, ripping it and the three of them upward through the spiraling elevator shaft and straight into the core chamber. They slammed onto the floor, scattering pieces of rock and dust. Ash stared, disbelief warring with fierce relief. Serena. The Azoth container cracked from the impact, and the crystalline diamond shield shattered. The noxious, corrosive purple energy of the catalyst began to spill onto the floor. Solana saw the exposed Azoth and smiled in triumph. Perfect. The sacrifice is complete. Olympia pushed the final button. The vessel matrix began to hum a deafening frequency, sucking the last of Diantha's energy and pulling the toxic Azoth toward its core. Ash ran, throwing himself over Diantha's containment field, drawing his aura inward to shield her from the spreading toxic energy. Pikachu, Electroweb. Stop the flow. Pikachu shot a desperate net of electricity into the Azoth, but the energy simply burned through the threads. Diancie, wake up, Serena yelled, dragging the weakened mythical Pokémon toward the spreading poison. Diancie blinked, seeing the poison, seeing the suffering champion. She unleashed a final, desperate burst of power. A massive diamond storm erupted from the mythical Pokémon. It didn't purify the Azoth. It encased the entire chamber in a thick, crystalline shell, freezing the reaction mid-flow. The Sea Citadel went silent. The threat was neutralized. The time was 11:59 p.m. Ash looked up. Diantha was alive, but still unconscious. Solana was staring at the crystal shell around the Azoth, her face a mask of cold fury. You are nothing but inconvenient variables, Solana hissed, her voice low and venomous. She pulled a device from her belt. You won the battle, Guardian. But you will not win the war. A massive roar shook the citadel. From the shattered window, a colossal, dark figure landed on the spire's balcony. It was a massive, synthetic legendary, a monstrous fusion of ancient technology and suppressed life force. "You have seized my Azoth," Solana said, stepping onto the creature's head. "I will simply take yours." She pointed directly at Ash. "Retrieve the boy. Hollow the frog. Commence final ascension." Chapter 8 End. Chapter 9. The climax. The Sea Citadel core chamber was a frozen tableau of conflict. Crystal diamond shards covered the floor, freezing the Azoth in place. In the center, Diantha remained suspended, unconscious but breathing. And on the fractured balcony, Grand Duchess Solana stood atop her synthetic champion. The creature was horrifying. It was massive, standing over 15 feet tall, its body a fusion of black, angular armor and pulsing violet energy. A grotesque echo of a mega-evolution. Its eyes glowed with the familiar, empty white of the hollows. "Witness the future, Guardian," Solana's voice was amplified, booming through the chamber. "This is Omega-01. The perfect vessel, untainted by the chaos of affection. It needs only your aura to complete its charge." Omega-01 launched its attack. It didn't move. It teleported directly across the chamber, slamming its massive, armored fist down onto Ash. "Greninja. Protect," Ash roared. Greninja met the strike, the water veil exploding outward. The clash of forces. Greninja's fluid, emotional energy against Omega-01's cold, kinetic precision, shook the entire spire. Ash felt the impact resonate through the bond, a dull, agonizing thud in his chest. "Serena, Shauna, get Diantha out of the field," Ash commanded, pushing back against the massive fist. "Pikachu, concentrate on the head." Pikachu launched a thunderbolt, but the energy was instantly absorbed by Omega-01's chassis. The creature didn't even flinch. It seemed to feed on raw power. "Futile," Solana mocked. "Its armor is designed to siphon kinetic energy and emotional attacks. You cannot defeat it with fire or lightning. You cannot defeat it with love, Ketchum. The bond is a weakness, a predictable point of failure." Omega-01 unleashed a wave of dark, corrupted energy, a hollow pulse. It wasn't aimed at Ash, but at Greninja's bond shuriken, seeking to shatter the focused energy. Ash closed his eyes, remembering the Elder's training: water, control, adapt. "Greninja, dive." The Pokémon vanished beneath the cracked diamond floor. Ash followed his partner's movement through the bond, sensing the creature's massive footsteps shaking the ground. Omega-01 turned, searching for the threat. "Serena, distraction, now." Serena didn't hesitate. She threw her Delphox's Pokeball. Delphox, mystical fire, burned the consoles. Delphox erupted in a torrent of violet flames, aiming not at the monster, but at Solana's control array. Solana shrieked, forced to divert her attention and use Omega-01's tail to swat the fire away, momentarily exposing the creature's flank. "Shauna." "Data point," Ash yelled. Shauna, already at the console, saw the fleeting opportunity. Omega-01 is stabilizing its energy flow through the dormant Azoth field. That's its power source. It's drawing ambient power through the floor. Ash understood. Solana was using the chamber itself as a massive battery, with the frozen Azoth as the conductive core. "Diancie, we need your power," Serena pleaded, helping the mythical Pokémon float toward the Azoth shell. "Purify it. Cut the link." Diancie, exhausted but resolute, flew to the crystal shell. She touched the Azoth containment field. A soft, blinding pink light erupted. Diancie wasn't just containing the poison, she was reversing the hollow effect. The dark purple began to lighten, turning a brilliant, healing pink. Omega-01 roared, feeling its power source slipping away. It abandoned the attack on Ash and lunged for Diancie. "No, you don't." Ash burst from the floor, landing directly on Omega-01's back. He grabbed the creature's metallic spine, channeling his own amplified aura into the chassis. "I won't let you hurt them. I won't let you sever the bond." Solana, realizing the danger, unleashed a final, desperate burst of hollow energy directly from her own body. "Die, boy. Die with your useless sentiment." The energy slammed into Ash. He felt his life force being violently torn from him. The pain was blinding, crushing the breath from his lungs. He was weakening rapidly. "Ash!" Serena screamed. Just as the lights in Ash's eyes began to dim, a figure burst into the chamber, rappelling down from a shattered ventilation shaft. It was Malva. She wore a stolen PDF uniform, carrying a massive energy rifle. She didn't aim at Solana or Omega-01, she aimed at the ceiling above the main support beam. "You're not doing this alone, Guardian," Malva yelled, her face contorted with fierce loyalty. "You wanted fire. Here's your fire." She fired the energy rifle. It was a focused plasma burst that slammed into the structural seam, causing the crystalline support beam to fracture. "Solana, your perfect circle has a flaw," Malva screamed. "The Citadel's integrity is compromised. You lose power the second the system fails." Solana's focus broke. She looked up, realizing the structural cascade Malva had triggered. She was losing her control array and her power source simultaneously. "You venomous traitor!" Solana shrieked at Malva. The distraction was all Ash needed. The pain from the hollow energy, instead of breaking him, was recycled through the intense emotional feedback of his court. Serena's fear, Shauna's resolve, Malva's fierce protection, and Diance's healing energy. Ash let go of Omega-01's spine. He dropped to the floor, panting, but the light in his eyes was no longer blue or red. It was a fierce, pure white. He had achieved the ultimate control. "Final move," Ash gasped. "Greninja. Pikachu. Combine everything." Greninja, powered by the healing energy radiating from Diance, absorbed a massive charge from Pikachu. The water veil around Greninja turned silver-white. The shuriken on its back pulsed with the combined power of the bond and the purified mythical energy. "Full power," Ash commanded. "Water shuriken, Guardian strike." Greninja launched the massive, focused shuriken. It moved with blinding, unstoppable force, a blade of pure, combined purpose. It didn't just hit Omega-01, it slammed straight into the creature's core, the pulsating violet heart that was the source of its hollow energy. The impact was absolute. The synthetic legendary didn't explode, it fractured. The black armor shattered, and the violet energy within dissipated into a puff of gray dust, leaving behind only the lifeless metal skeleton of the machine. Solana stared in shock, her creation destroyed. She fell from the remains of Omega-01, landing heavily on the floor. The chamber fell silent. Ash stood over the defeated architect, utterly exhausted, the white light fading from his eyes. He stumbled, catching himself on the shattered console. Solana looked up at him, her face calm despite the dust and her defeat. "You won with chaos, Ketchum. You won with variables. But the flaw is still in the system. The world cannot sustain this disorder." "The world doesn't need your silence, Solana," Ash countered, his voice raw. "It needs the bond. It needs the chaos of hope." Malva quickly subdued the defeated Duchess, placing League-issued shock cuffs on her wrists. Serena and Shauna rushed to Ash, helping him stay upright. "You're an idiot," Serena murmured, tears blurring her vision as she supported his weight. "You almost died." "I know," Ash whispered, leaning into her touch, his energy completely spent, "but we saved her." He looked over at Diantha. The champion's energy stone was bright again. The tubes detached. Diantha was stable. Shauna checked the system. "It's done. The hollow process is completely purged from the Citadel. We won." Malva walked up to them, removing her borrowed PDF helmet. Her eyes were bright with emotion she couldn't hide. She stood apart, waiting for a verdict. Ash looked at her, the cynical Elite Four member who had gambled everything on him. "Welcome back, Malva," Ash said, managing a tired smile. Malva simply nodded, a single tear tracing a clean path through the soot on her cheek. She was home. The Citadel was silent. The Guardian, his court intact, had secured the victory. But the reconstruction, of the League, of their lives, and of the bonds forged in fire, was just beginning. Chapter 9 End. Chapter 10. Dawn over Kalos. The sterile white of the hospital room was a jarring contrast to the diamond shards and smoke of the Citadel. Ash lay still, pale and wired to monitors, sleeping a deep, unnatural sleep. The doctors called it aura exhaustion, a systemic shutdown caused by channeling too much energy during the final confrontation with Omega-01. He slept for 3 days. The vigil was silent but constant. Serena sat by his bedside during the daylight hours, her hand clasped gently over his own. She spoke softly to him, recounting harmless memories of their travels. The taste of Illumios macaron, the warmth of a campfire in Viridian Forest. She was the anchor, ensuring his spirit didn't drift too far. Shauna took the evening shift. She didn't talk much, preferring to work. She was tirelessly hacking the defunct Ascendancy network, pulling every last piece of data to ensure Solana had no hidden contingency plans. She kept the world turning for him, showing her love through the practical strength of organization and focus. Malva guarded the night. She never sat close. She stood by the window, a dark, silent sentinel. She didn't speak, didn't touch him. She just watched the shadows, her eyes hard, daring the universe to try and take him. The man who had redeemed her was fragile, and she was the fire protecting him from the cold. On the morning of the fourth day, the electrical hum of the monitors suddenly spiked. Ash's eyes fluttered open. The first thing he saw was the pale, exhausted face of Diantha, sitting in a chair nearby, watching him. "You're an absolute menace, Ash Ketchum," the champion said, her voice weak but firm. She was out of her gown, dressed in simple civilian clothes. "You saved me. You saved Kalos, again." Ash tried to sit up, but a wave of nausea hit him. Solana. Captured. In custody. The entire Ascendancy network is dismantled, Diantha confirmed. Malva's intel in your battle. It provided everything the world needed to see. The League Council held an emergency session. Valerius is imprisoned. We are cleaning out the rot. Serena rushed to his side, tears of relief tracing paths down her cheeks. "Don't talk yet, just rest." "What about the Guardian title?" Ash whispered. Diantha sighed, a weight of years settling on her shoulders. "The title is obsolete. It was a political mistake. We don't need a weapon, Ash. We need a foundation." She handed him a simple, carved wooden pokeball, not a master ball, but one made of the sacred wood of the Winding Woods. "The League is dissolving the council and rebuilding," Diantha explained. "We need a protector who answers to no one but the people and the Pokemon. Effective immediately, you are designated the protector of Kalos." "Protector," Ash repeated. "It is a life appointment, Ash," Diantha said seriously. "It comes with no political strings, unlimited resources, and the unconditional support of the League. Your only duty is to ensure the bond is never threatened again." The transfer back to the estate was quiet. Sycamore stayed behind to oversee the detoxification of the Azoth, which Diancie was slowly transforming into harmless, purified energy crystals. Diantha remained in Lumios. The four of them, Ash, Serena, Shauna, and Malva, walked through the reclaimed halls of the estate. It felt different now, no longer a temporary fortress, but a home. They gathered in the library, the setting sun casting long, golden bars of light through the windows. The silence was thick, charged with unspoken truths and the weight of the future. Ash sat on the edge of a deep leather chair, Greninja at his side. "Malva," Ash said, breaking the silence. "Diantha offered you a full pardon. She wants you back in the Elite Four." Malva, who was standing by the window, turned. Her face was impossible to read. "I turned against my colleagues. I orchestrated a catastrophic security breach. I belong here." "I don't mean in prison," Ash clarified. "I mean here, with us, as my chief of strategy and intelligence." Diantha agreed. Malva looked at him, then at Serena and Shauna. "I am a broken weapon. I am cynicism made flesh. I do not belong in your light." "The light needs shadows to be defined," Ash said simply. "You taught me how to fight the system. You taught me the only way to beat a traitor is to trust a smarter one. You're essential." Malva finally cracked a faint smile. It held relief, and something darker, a possessive satisfaction. "Then I accept, protector. But know this. I am loyal only to you. Not to any badge or council." "Good," Ash said. The conversation drifted, the undercurrent shifting from politics to something far more intimate. Serena and Shauna glanced at each other, acknowledging the elephant in the room. "Ash," Serena began, her voice soft but firm. "When you were in the hospital, we realized something. We all grew up in this fight. We aren't just partners in battle. We're a different kind of family. We saw the worst of you, and we saw the best of you," Shauna added, her eyes serious. "We know the weight you carry. We don't want to leave you alone with it." Ash looked at the three women. Serena, the unwavering heart, ready to sacrifice everything for his emotional survival. Shauna, the grounding spark, the genius who kept the technical world from breaking him. And Malva, the pragmatic blade, ready to do the necessary dark things so he didn't have to. He understood now. Their bond, forged in the heat of the ultimate weapon, was unique. It wasn't defined by tradition or rules. It was defined by mutual need and respect for their individual strengths. I need all of you, Ash said honestly, standing up. He walked toward Serena, then Shauna, then finally looked at Malva. I can't go back to fighting alone. The protector of Kalos needs his court. The heart needs the spirit, and the blade needs the purpose. He didn't make a grand declaration. He didn't promise a fairy tale. He simply promised inclusion and absolute trust. Serena stepped forward, closing the final distance. She didn't hesitate this time. She lifted her face and kissed him, a long, profound kiss of relief, love, and partnership. Shauna, grinning widely, wrapped her arms around both of them, drawing them into a tight, warm hug. Malva watched for a moment, then, with a slow, deliberate step, placed her hand on Ash's shoulder, her loyalty cemented in the pact. 1 year later, the Guardian's estate, now simply called the Protectorate, was fully renovated. It was less a fortress and more a shining sanctuary. Ash stood on the newly constructed, expansive terrace, looking out over the azure bay. He was older, calmer, but his eyes still held that fierce spark. He wore a uniform of his own design, a simple, strong black and silver jacket. Pikachu was watching a group of younger trainers sparring on the training field below. Among them were Tierno and Trevor, now working as field agents under the Protectorate. The report from Johto is clean, Malva murmured, walking up to him. She was in her element now, managing a complex network of informants and agents across the globe. She handed him a slim datapad. Professor Elm is requesting increased funding for his evolutionary research. I've approved it. Good, Ash said, glancing at the data. Serena walked out onto the terrace, carrying a tray with 4 mugs of steaming coffee. She was no longer performing. She ran the Protectorate's civilian and diplomatic outreach, managing resources and public relations with flawless grace. Shauna just finished updating the National Defense Grid, Serena said, handing Ash his mug. She's celebrating by trying to teach Sycamore how to stream Pokemon battles. A loud, frustrated yell echoed faintly from the control room wing. Ash smiled, taking a slow sip of the coffee. The 3 women stood beside him, a united, powerful front. The region is quiet, Ash observed, looking at the distant silhouette of Lumio's city, now completely rebuilt. It is, Malva agreed. But silence is only the absence of sound, Protector. It is not the absence of threat. We know, Ash said, looking at his court. He looked at Serena, the gentle strength of her love, at Shauna, the spark of genius that illuminated the darkness, and at Malva, the tempered blade that kept them safe in the shadows. He was no longer just the trainer seeking a title. He was the anchor of a new world, surrounded by the fierce loyalty of his found family. Let them come, Ash said, his voice quiet, confident, and utterly unafraid. We're ready. Chapter 10 End.